bow out of the 2020 race, entrepreneur Andrew Yang is still pushing a message he's been touting since his campaign started in 2017. I recently sat down with him. He says his first priority as president would be to implement a universal basic income.
A universal basic income is a policy where every citizen in a country gets a certain amount of money free and clear to do whatever they want. So my plan, the Freedom Dividend, would give every American adult $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year starting at age 18. This would create millions of jobs around the country and would allow families and individuals to help manage this historic transition that we're in terms of technology transforming the labor force. And so this idea, it's new to many Americans, but it's actually as old as the country itself, where Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of the country. He called it the Citizens Dividend. Martin Luther King was for it in the 1960s.
The biggest college admission scandal in U.S. history is spurring legal action by parents and students across the country. 2 lawsuits filed this week allege the scheme denied students who played by the rules a fair chance to win college admission. One suit is seeking $500 billion. Carter Evans is at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, one of the schools caught up in the scandal. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. Full House actress Lori Loughlin is named in one of those new lawsuits. She allegedly paid to cheat her daughter's way here into USC, and now their family is facing financial repercussions.
Here you go. These are on the house.
Lori Loughlin's decade-long relationship with the Hallmark Channel came to an abrupt end Thursday. In a statement, the company said, "We are saddened by recent news surrounding the college admissions allegations. We are no longer working with Lori Loughlin." Loughlin and her husband are among 33 parents charged in the massive college admissions scheme.
My highlight palette with Sephora collection.
When your child brings home their report card, anything less than a 60 is a failing grade. But there's a plan going through the General Assembly that would change your child's school performance scores. A failing grade for the school would be anything less than 40. Here's how it would work. An overall school score of 100 to 85 would be an A. Anything between 84 and 70 would be a B. 69 to 55 would be equivalent to a C. 54 to 40, a passing grade of D. Anything below 40 equals a failing grade or an F.
The joint resolution is passed.
In a stinging rebuke to President Donald Trump, the Republican-controlled Senate on Thursday voted to reject Trump's declaration of a national emergency on the southern border.
To make clear, a border fence, a border barrier, is a policy that I support wholeheartedly, unequivocally. An emergency declaration, in accordance with the National Emergencies Act in this instance, is different.
12 Republicans joined Democrats to oppose Trump's emergency order aimed at building his signature wall with Mexico after the House of Representatives did the same last month.
Here we are today. We're proud to stand with members from both sides of the Capitol to take a momentous step toward full equality with LGBTQ Americans and for our country. Our founders, in their wisdom, wrote in our beautiful preamble to the Constitution, the blessings of liberty. Talked about the blessings of living, which were to be the birthright of all Americans.
And many Americans believe they're competing for jobs with a growing number of undocumented immigrants. That's according to a Rasmussen report survey conducted just last August. The poll also showed a racial divide between whites and blacks, showing that most white people do believe immigrants are taking jobs away from them, while most black respondents disagreed. To discuss this, we're being joined now by Mr. Ted Hayes. He's a civil rights activist. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Hayes.
Welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. Hello, this is Black Minds News. I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Mind. And this channel is to report, articulate, transmit, communicate, articulate, relay, unveil, decode, spread the news, whether it's by news, video, websites, or quotes from publications. As I articulate these information, I ask that the creator of the universe be here, heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created this greatest land, what they call the United States, on this planet Earth, we give honor to our ancestors. And you know what my motto is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. That's right, y'all. Back again, trying to go over the backed up show from one of the last one. I'm going to appreciate all you who went out there and did that clicking again, said you liked the show. And the numbers, a little bit more than usual. Again, I'm working so hard in the background, trying to get this show back on the road, get it up out of that dead zone they got me in. But first and foremost, before I get into all of that, I got to say what's good to the fam subscribers that should be watching the show right now. Know by yourself, we ain't live like we had been, but I appreciate that you take some time out of your busy schedule, your day, your oppressive day, and come and listen to a brother try to spit some of this news that they got out there. So first and foremost to you, I want to say what's good. And new subscribers, again, welcome as well. You know, there's got to get some subscribers out there, and I kind of appreciate that. And I'm welcome to the Black Minds News. I'm again, Mr. Blows Your Mind as your host. Passerbyers, you know, it's always a grand opening when you come over here. Because why? It just is. And you can go down the aisle, see something you like, which is be in my library videos. Click on the like button. If you should happen to have to click something that you don't like, I can send a manager out there to talk to you. Maybe we can have a little conversation about something, give you a discount or something, give you your IOU on your return. And maybe we'll find you come back again and find something you like. And maybe you might end up being a subscriber. And we thank you. And we always aim to please. Agents! Nothing to talk about. So let's move on. So, again, it's actually March the 19th, right? I'm a day behind just until I get caught up, right? So, you know, I had took the 6 days off, and due to, again, with all the stuff that was going on, again, trying to posterize the black image of the masculine energy, right? The male. And so, you know, I'm in total agreement to some of the allegations or not. I just don't think that I need to be putting any nails on the cross for those brothers. Now, again, when you're wrong, you're wrong. But again, I'm not here to sit there and to, you know, berate my brothers in that kind of form and fashion when I myself, unless you were one of the people who were participants in it, then maybe you may have the whole truth, but as observing just what I'm going on, what has been put out in the media, it's not my job to sit there and try to figure out the real of that, because only they know. So anyway, let me get into the show there. I got a nice little show set up for you to get in today. And, due to the simple fact that, again, the Black Corner, matter of fact, I have to tell like this, I'm the most hated show on the Black Corner of the internet, because why? We are the corner that the builders rejected. Let me say that again. Most hated show on the Black Corner of the internet is because why? The Black Corner of the internet is the corner that the builders reject. Now, well, a lot of people out here, there's a lot of stuff being said out here, folks. A lot of stuff out here being said. And it's kind of like, man, more coming and going, right? People be acting like, that people who are not affiliated with some kind of, let's say, you don't have the degrees, you don't have the vernacular that would be presumably that you're a highly educated person, that somehow because you don't fall under the bourgeoisie, that somehow you are not official. And so you don't have you have no Pachetto, right? It was Pinocchio Pachetto, right? He was the puppeteer. So because we are free-spirited and we do as we do on our own channels, and because no one pulls the strings other than the fact of suspending you for 90 days and don't have no real reason but a way to suppress your voice, those only strings I may have some attached to, but let's say that because you don't have that somebody to answer to, so sometimes when we do the things that we do, they are considered unorthodox, right? You remember that in Enter the Dragon? Remember that with Mr. Han when Jim Kelly was in there. He said, "What were you last night?" He said, "Suddenly I would like to leave your island. That would not be possible." Right? Remember that? Right? And they said after he whooped the guards up, he said, "Your style is unorthodox." But Jim Kelly said, "But very effective." Right? Well, that's how we are in the black corner of the internet. Right? We like Jim Kelly. Our style is unorthodox. It's not according to the play script of how certain people want things to run. It'll say Nebuchadnezzar. How Nebuchadnezzar wants to run his thing, and he has his minions in place so that to keep everybody in the way they want it running. So there's people like myself and others, and again, I do acknowledge y'all, even though I may not say your name. I see and watch your works. Not sure whether you do it on my own, but it's okay. It's all right, because again, I am the most suppressed show in the black corner of the internet. Because why? This wild maverick. He is a bronc horse that needs to be rode. Trying to catch him, though. So I'm going to start this off here. You know, I got to get it in. Got to get you warmed up to get to where I got to go, right? So again, you know, this is kind of like the political season, right? There's the political season. And so, you know, people out here campaigning, sneaking in, saying all kinds of things. And again, it's incumbent on me as being Black Minds News to see those things. And those who are willing participants and subscribers to the show, you know, if I see some things, I'm going to try to incorporate it into the show. And again, I want to say to my brother out there, Bernard Thomas, man, this brother here, that brother keeps them pump. He keeps it pumping. You understand, dude? I'm catching a library of that stuff that you get, but keep it going, bro. I'm gonna get you because you know I'm backed up, but I'm seeing everything that you're presenting, and you know, like I said, when I get it back on, I want to actually have you come on, do some couple things, so you know how it is, and a couple sisters out there, Miss Washington, and out there, and there's a couple other sisters out there too, you know what I'm saying, and I want to thank all y'all for y'all support and y'all comments and everything, and again, sometimes I'm a little slow getting to you, but you know I will get to you, but again, let's get back to the show. Just want to give you a PSA right quick, right, personal service announcement. Now, again, you got people coming on out, right? And they saying a little something, right? They're saying a little something. And, you know, everybody, again, coming out as a Democrat seems to be a little hesitant coming out the door because they said, hey, niggas in that goddamn corner over there is causing a lot of trouble, you know. They riling up and stirring up the lumpen proletariats, and that is not what we want. We want them to be asleep. So when we come out and just say Democrats, well, you choose from the selection like going into a restaurant. They hand you a menu, you look and you choose according to what's in there. You can't get nothing outside of that, right? Let's say again, you know, I've said this probably several times. Let's just say you went into one of your favorite fast food restaurants. Say it's a hamburger joint. You decide you got taste for some pot roast. You know what I'm saying? You got some pot roast and rice and all that, right? And you say, well, can I get a pot roast? And they looking at you like, well, they ain't on the menu. When you say, well, it's a restaurant, right? Like, but we only serve what we serve on there. Well, I got a taste for pot roast. You can't make that for me? No, you got to go somewhere else to do that. So, again, that's kind of how, like, what's going on here with the black corner of the internet, the corner that the builders reject. They're not going according to what's in the menu. So you bringing this stuff and then they want to try to say you're foreign and all this other stuff. Well, let's check this out. Because, see, we're going to look at everybody. See, some people say that we only scrutinize one party and not everybody. But everybody ain't coming out. You understand? So we can only look at those who are, you know, laying down, you know, what they're campaigning. I gotta look at that, right? So I see this cat here, and I see nobody so far in the corner decide to touch him. So you know it had to be coming on me, Mr. Blow Your Mind. I had to do it, right? So let me go on here. Let's see if we're gonna get it started off right. Let's see if we're gonna get it all right. So let me go ahead and get it warmed up, fired it up, and let's get it going. Let's see how it's gonna start off today.
As more people jump into and bow out of the 2020 race, entrepreneur Andrew Yang is still pushing a message he's been touting since his campaign started in 2017. I recently sat down with him. He says his first priority as president would be to implement a universal basic income.
A universal basic income is a policy where every citizen in a country gets a certain amount of money free and clear to do whatever they want. So my plan, the Freedom Dividend, would give every American adult $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year starting at age 18. This would create millions of jobs around the country and would allow families and individuals to help manage this historic transition that we're in terms of technology transforming the labor force. And so this idea, it's new to many Americans, but it's actually as old as the country itself, where Thomas Paine was for it at the founding of the country. He called it the Citizens' Dividend. Martin Luther King was for it in the 1960s. Milton Friedman and 1,000 economists signed a study saying this would be great for our society. And one state has had a dividend for 37 years, where everyone in the state of Alaska is getting between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what they're doing in Alaska with oil money, we can do for the rest of the country with technology money.
And in New Hampshire, you have a family that you're already testing this out with. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we had dozens and dozens of submissions in New Hampshire, and we picked Jodie Fossey, whose mom, and it's such an American story where the father lost his job recently and then happily has found a new one. The mom, Jodie, cleans houses around the area, and then their daughter is a sophomore in college, and they have these massive tuition bills. And so the Freedom Dividend has been this great source of relief to them. They haven't even spent it. And one of the things that that gives me such pleasure is that people talk about, it's like, oh, if you give everyone $1,000 a month, you know, it's somehow going to cause problems. But then when you see it in real life, you realize that $1,000 a month just makes people breathe a little easier and live a better life.
President Trump has been talking a lot lately about socialism, and it's no doubt going to be something that we'll hear a lot more about as we head into 2020. What do you say to Americans who hear this idea of universal basic income and think socialism? It sounds a lot like socialism to them.
Well, I'm a CEO and business person, and I'll tell you that putting money into people's hands, it's good for business, it's good for the economy, and it's good for markets. This is not socialism. This is capitalism, where income doesn't start at zero. And if you think about where Americans are going to spend that money, they're going to spend it at their local businesses, their Main Street economy. And this is a great way to help supercharge those businesses for the next number of years.
But for people who hear that and say, yes, but ultimately it's still the government handing out money, you would say what?
Well, you have to look at what's happened to our economic system over the last number of years, where all the relationships that we've taken for granted with capitalism, where if your company grew rich and successful, you'd have to hire lots of people, you'd have to treat them well and pay them well, you'd have to pay them at least as well, so that they can afford to buy your services, the way Henry Ford said, like, how do my workers buy my cars? Now, in today's economy, you can create a very rich and successful business that doesn't employ lots of people. If it does employ people, it can employ them as gig or temporary or contract workers. And it does not need to pay them well enough to buy the goods and services, because you can sell globally. And so all of the things we've taken for granted about capitalism are now changing, and we have to evolve with the times.
So you've cited the rise of automation as the reason why we need universal basic income. And the last time we spoke was for the CBSN originals called Replacing Humans. You said we were going through, quote, the greatest technological and economic shift we've ever experienced. Do you think that other Democrats running for office need to be talking about this issue?
You know, I'm happy to say they're catching on, and I'm hearing from more and more candidates that we are in the midst of this historic shift and that we need to start evolving and adapting our economic system. And so I think I might have had something to do with the fact that now it's top of mind for more candidates, but I'll tell you, it's a top of mind for many, many Americans. And so I think it's going to really stay front and center in the months to come.
So you're going back to Iowa when? Monday? Right?
Monday for the 9th time, that's right.
For the 9th time. And I wonder how you've been targeting early voting states, and do you think that you'll make it on the debate stage here this summer?
Well, you know, when I talk to people in Iowa and New Hampshire about what's happening in the economy, they get it immediately, because Iowa itself lost 40,000 manufacturing jobs and is in the midst of, it's already lost 12,000 retail jobs, and 30% of the malls and stores in Iowa and nationwide are closing. Iowa is the home to the largest truck stop in the country, Iowa 80. And so when you talk about the automation of truck driving, it hits really home for them. So I'm getting a great reception in the early states, and I'm very much on track to make the debates in June and July, both in terms of polling and in terms of the number of individual contributors to my campaign.
And so you've raised a lot of money in February, as I understand it. What was that figure?
We raised a little less than $600,000 in the month of February alone, and March is on track to be even better.
And what do you think, you say you saw a spike. Why do you think that is, that you saw a spike in February?
Well, we had a number of people find out about us in the month of February through various media opportunities, but the most invigorating thing about it is that the hundreds of thousands of dollars, the average donation was only $16, and we got donations from literally tens of thousands of Americans from every walk of life around the country. So this is truly democracy in action, and the campaign is just growing exponentially over time.
Already, even though we're just into March of 2019, we've been hearing already talk about Medicare for All, the Green New Deal, and your focus is on universal basic income.
Yes.
Is there enough room to kind of focus on these big thought, big ideas on the Democratic side? And what are your feelings regarding Medicare for All and the Green New Deal?
Well, I love these big ideas because it shows that the Democratic Party is trying to solve the real problems on the ground in people's lives. And so certainly healthcare has been a massive, well, it's the #1 cause of bankruptcy for individuals around the country still. We're spending twice as much as other countries on worse care by the numbers. And so the fact that people are proposing sweeping changes, I think, is very much appropriate and grounded in the way people are experiencing our system right now. I think the Green New Deal also, in many ways, it's overdue for us to be trying to wrestle with the fact that the 4 warmest years in history have been the last 4 years. So it's not that climate change is sneaking up on us. I mean, at this point, it's right in front of our very eyes. So I love the fact that Democrats are proposing these big, bold ideas. And I think universal basic income, the freedom dividend, is going to also join those other 2 ideas in terms of the forefront of the discussion.
Last question. You're, of course, a businessman. Another New York businessman said that he was not going to be running come 2020. Michael Bloomberg said this, quote, "It's essential that we nominate a Democrat who will be in the strongest position to defeat Donald Trump and bring our country back together." Do you think you're that Democrat?
You know, I do, because when I'm in Ohio or Iowa or New Hampshire, I get dozens, hundreds of people coming up to me saying they voted for Donald Trump and they're going to vote for me. One person actually said, I'm who they were hoping they were getting when they voted for Donald Trump, because I'm an outsider, I'm a business person, and I'm trying to solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place. So if I'm the nominee for the Democratic Party, I'm going to beat Trump hands down in the general election.
Okay, I know I said that was the last question, but one more final question. This is a moment when the term identity politics is resurfacing at a really interesting time when, on the Democratic side, there are a lot of candidates who are not shying away from their background. In fact, they're sort of highlighting the very things that would, separate them from others. How much of a factor is that for you as a Democratic candidate here coming up in 2020, this question of identity?
Well, I am the first Asian American man to run for president as a Democrat, and I'm very proud of my heritage and of being Asian American. But I think my race is essentially a non-factor for most of the Americans I talk to around the country. They're just looking for someone whose vision will improve their lives day to day and the lives of their families. And that's, I think, what most Americans are looking for.
Is there too much focus, you think, on the idea of identity already heading into 2020?
You know, I can't speak for others. I will say that the way I approach these problems is to try and put forward solutions that will actually make a difference in people's lives. And I know people want to get to know the candidates for president. I'm very happy to share, my own story. But to me, we've been trafficking a little bit too heavily in symbolism and imagery, and we have to actually change the reality on the ground.
Andrew Yang, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been great to be here.
Reparations for descendants of slaves emerge as key issues in 2020 Democratic field. You know I'm going to say that again. Reparations for descendants of slaves emerges as key issues in 2020 Democratic field. This story was coming from the San Antonio Express News. March 11, 2019, and this is how it reads. Washington. The question of whether to pay restitution to descendants of slaves is emerging as an issue in presidential politics, enabling 2020 Democratic hopefuls to woe African American voters while opening the party to criticism for moving too far left. The reparation issue has largely been avoided in mainstream politics due to the controversy it generates, as well as to the incalculable amount of tax dollars that would be involved. Barack Obama said there's no practical way to administer reparations or means to build political support. Hillary Clinton opposed it, as have other Democratic nominees in recent times. But Julian Castro is among several contestants for the Democratic nomination who have embraced the issue, and extracts into the race can expect to be grilled on the matter. In Congress, Republican Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat of Houston, is chief sponsor of a resolution calling for a reparations study commission. She received a boost recently when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California, endorsed the plan. Castro is a former San Antonio mayor and housing secretary in the Obama administration, has been the most straightforward among Democrat candidates endorsing reparations. Senator Kamala Harris of California, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, and Cory Booker of New Jersey have signed on in one way or another. Castro wants a presidential task force to take up the matter. I'm convinced that it's worth figuring out, because I see this as an issue of right and wrong. He said in an interview last week, I believe that we should compensate the descendants of people who were taken as property and sanctioned by the state as property. That was wrong then, and it continues to be wrong and has not yet been made right. He added, I know there's plenty of disagreement about whether there ought to be reparations, but I don't see the issue from a political lens. I just see it as right or wrong, even if there's liability. So what? Another Democrat hopeful, California Senator Kamala Harris, appears to have softened her earlier support. Referring to a tax credit proposal she has offered, she told an interviewer recently, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whether benefits that black families will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country, right? 2016 poll, 7 in 10 against reparations. Heading towards 2020, Republicans are skewing Democrats for left-of-center policies such as the Green New Deal and so-called Medicare for All, which call for expanded federal roles in the energy and health care sectors. Pat Buchanan, the conservative columnist and former GOP presidential candidate, offered a glimpse of the blown-back Democrats can expect if reparations endures as a campaign issue. Are the Democrats going to say this is their national platform in 2020? And how much will the rest of America be forced to pay, and for how long? He asked in a column. Politically, the party of slavery, secession, and segregation was the party of Jefferson, Jackson, Clay, Calhoun, Wilson, and FDR, who put a Klansman on the Supreme Court. The Democrat Party. It was the Republican Party that was formed to contain and end slavery, and did, he wrote. Reparations for slavery always had a polarizing issue. Nearly 7 in 10 Americans opposed it, and in 2016 Meredith's poll, including over 80% of white adults, African Americans support payments 58 to 35%, and Latinos split evenly on the question. This has not been an idea that been richly supported in the popular imagination in a long time, said William Doherty Jr., a Duke University economist, whose forthcoming book, From Here to Equality, explores the issue. The real question is whether or not the public conversation about this moves the needle. If we can get 40 or 45% of whites, then the game is on, he said. Charlton McLean, co-director of New York University Project of Race in Politics or Political Communication, said that there are clearly a lot of electoral strategies in play. He was referring to the bidding for African American primary votes for members of the diverse field of 2020 Democratic candidates. But McWayne sees the country beginning an overdue discussion spurred by years of scholarly focus on reparation by Darity and others. The topic enjoys a place of seriousness today in a way that it didn't even 2 or 3 years ago, he said. Japanese internment camps led to 20,000 payout. In Congress, Jackson Lee, House Resolution 40, recalls the post-Civil War promise of 40 acres and a mule to former slaves, a promise not kept. Her legislation asserts that 4 million African Americans and their descendants were enslaved in the United States and colonies. The legislation sets up a commission that would conduct a wide-ranging review of slavery and develop reparation proposals. In addition to examining what occurred from the 16th century until after the Civil War, the commission would study the lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and its effects on living African Americans and on society in the United States. In a year's time, would consider programs from reversing the injuries of slavery and plan how the United States government could formally apologize for perpetration of gross human right violation and crimes against humanity on African slaves and their descendants. Determining structure for payment could be challenging. Marianne Williamson, a best-selling author and less-known candidate for the Democratic nomination, proposed that African Americans receive payments of $10 billion yearly for 10 years. Social scientists who have looked at the question say that the tab would be far greater, perhaps in the trillions. Proponents point to the examples of reparations in the past. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan signed legislation authorizing $20,000 each to more than 100,000 people of Japanese descent who were incarcerated in internment camps during World War II. The German government has paid tens of billions of dollars over the years to Jews survivors of the Holocaust. In 2019, Germans are set to pay out more than $500 million globally. Who gets the payment is another thorny question. Darity believes that rather than requirements such as a DNA test or blood quantum standards, a system could be devised in which self-identified African Americans or blacks would have opportunity to prove their ancestors were enslaved in the United States. Darity believes that ultimately legislation in Congress is the only way to offer restitution to descendants of slaves in the form of reparations. If you have already not established broad consent for such a program, is going to be corrupt, destroyed, or undermined, he said. Martin Luther King's economic dream, guaranteed income for all Americans. You know I'm going to say that again. Martin Luther King's economic dream, a guaranteed income for all Americans. The civil rights leader laid out his vision for fighting poverty in his final book. This story comes in The Atlantic, August the 28th, 2013, and this is how it reads. One of the more underappreciated aspects of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy is that by the end of his career, he had fashioned himself into a crusader against poverty, not just among blacks, but all Americans. In the weeks leading to his assassination, the civil rights leader had been hard at work organizing a new march on Washington known as the Poor People's Campaign. The goal was to erect a tent city on the National Mall that, as Mark Engler described it for The Nation in 2010, would dramatize the reality of joblessness and deprivation by bringing those excluded from the economy to the doorsteps of the nation's leaders. He was killed before he could see the efforts through. So what exactly was King's economic dream? In short, he wanted the government to eradicate poverty by providing every American a guaranteed middle-class income, an ideal that, while light years beyond the realms of mainstream political conversation today, had actually come into vogue by the late 1960s. To be crystal clear, a guaranteed income, or a universal basic income, as it's sometimes called today, is not the same as a higher minimum wage. Instead, it's a policy designed to make sure each American has a certain concrete sum of money to spend each year. One modern version of the policy would give every adult a tax credit that would essentially become a cash payment for families that don't pay much tax. Conservative thinker Charles Murray has advocated replacing the whole welfare state by handing every grown American a full $10,000. King had an even more expansive vision. He laid out the case for the guaranteed income in his final book. 1967, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Washington's previous efforts to fight poverty, he concluded, had been piecemeal and pygmy. The government believed it could lift up the poor by attacking the root causes of their impoverishment one by one. By providing better housing, better education, and better support for families, but these efforts had been too small and too disorganized. Moreover, he wrote, the programs of the past all have another common failing. They are indirect. Each seeks to solve poverty by first solving something else. It was time, he believed, for a more straightforward approach. The government needed to make sure every American had a reasonable income. In part, King's thinking seemed to stem from a sense that no matter how strongly the economy might grow, it would never eliminate poverty entirely or provide jobs for all, as he put it. We have come a long way in our understanding of human motivation and of the blind operations of our economic system. Now we realize that dislocation in the market operation of our economy and the prevalence of discrimination thrusts people into idleness and binds them into constant or frequent unemployment against their will. The poor are less often dismissed from our conscience today by being branded as inferior and incompetent. We also know that no matter how dynamically the economy develops and expands, it does not eliminate all poverty. The problem indicates that our emphasis must be twofold. We must create full employment, or we must create incomes. People must be made consumers by one method or the other. Once they are placed in this position, we need to be concerned that the potential of the individual is not wasted. New forms of work that enhance the social good will have to be devised for those for whom traditional jobs are not available. Note, King did not appear to be arguing that Washington should simply pay people not to work. Rather, he seemed to believe it was the government's responsibility to create jobs for those left behind by the economy. From his language here, it is not hard to imagine he might even have supported a work requirement in some circumstances, but above all else, to ensure a basic standard of living. More than basic, actually. King argued that the guaranteed income should be pegged to the median of society and rise automatically along with the United States standard of living. To guarantee an income at the floor would simply perpetuate welfare standards and freeze into the society poverty conditions, he wrote. Was it feasible? Maybe. He noted and estimated by John Kenneth Galbraith that the government could create a generous guaranteed income with $20 billion, which, as the economist put it, was not much more than we spend the next fiscal year to rescue freedom and democracy and religious liberties as these are defined by experts in Vietnam. As practical economists or economics, ensuring every single American and middle class living through government redistribution and work programs seems a bit fanciful. The closest such an ideal ever really came to fruition, meanwhile, was President Nixon's proposed Family Assistance Plan, which would have ended welfare and instead guaranteed families of $1,600 a year at a time when the median household income was about $7,400. But as a statement of value, King's notion remained powerful. So with that in mind, I'll leave you with man's own words. The contemporary tendency in our society is to base our distribution on scarcity, which has vanished, and to compress our abundance into the overfed mouths of the middle and upper classes until they gag with superfluity. If democracy is to have breadth of meaning, it is necessary to adjust this inequality or inequity. It is not only moral, but it is also intelligent. We are wasting and degrading human life by clinging to the archaic thinking. The curse of poverty has no justification in our age. It is socially as cruel and blind as the practice of cannibalism at the dawn of civilization, when men ate each other because they had not learned to take food from the soil or to consume the abundant animal life around them. The time has come for us to civilize ourselves by the total, direct, and immediate abolition of poverty. All right, I know it was a little bit long, but again, got to fix that plate for you, right? So what you seen originally, the first video that was there was about a candidate running for the 2020 presidential run, was Andrew Yang, not Ying, but Yang, right? Andrew Yang, right? Dude is a statistician, right? I think he's a statistic man, right? He's kind of got the, about statistics, right? And so we see that he's trying to run under the mantra, or let's say his in the bag, right? We're going to talk about what he got in the bag. You know, what you got in the bag, Dad? He said, I got some universal basic income in the bag for you. Are y'all interested in that? And, also they also called it, what do they call that? Freedom Dividend. I think it's Freedom Dividend. I think that was the Freedom Dividend, right? So in Yang's bag, he's saying, I got some money for you, huh? So Andrew Yang gave you the little spiel, talking about all the stuff, talking about the old green bill, and he's talking about, how technology, right? And he's talking about this universal basic income. Matter of fact, for me as a person who does some, avid reading, a lot of news, I remember that Bill Gates was talking about this, maybe a couple years ago, was talking about this universal, everybody getting a check, right? And so we see that it looked like Andrew Yang has picked up that mantra, and again, by him being into technology, and Bill Gates is Microsoft. So I'm pretty sure he might be tied in somewhere. What they say, trace the money, right? So we see that Andrew Yang was talking about how, again, he was trying to give some credibility to his, what he's proposing. He said, well, there was Thomas Paine. We go to the history of Thomas Paine. You see that he was also an advocate for that. And he said, then there was Milton Friedman. He was doing it too. And then he said Martin Luther King. And that right there would have perked up some, black folks' ear. What? Martin? Martin was for this? Really? So, what I'm saying? That was something to throw like a little shot to get you to be what? He threw the hook out to throw the bait, right? And so we see Mr. Yang is talking about how that, in Alaska, where coated in a well digger's butt, as they say, that you get $1,000 to $2,000 a month with no questions asked. Well, you better get on the next bus and get your ass to Alaska if you ain't got no money, right? That's what he's basically saying, right? Like in Alaska, you can get $1,000 to $2,000 with no question asked. Well, really, I guess that in the sense when you ain't got no money, you can't get a job. $1,000, $2,000 a month, you could do some, could do a little bit if you get two people together, find you some low economical rent, and y'all could be able to suffice. You know what I'm saying? $4,000 in the pocket, as long as you ain't got no vice or hit no pipe and none of that stuff, you might be all right. Sure. But anyway, so that's what he's offering there, right? He's setting up the lure. He is putting the sparkle, the candy in the dish. Right? And so he says, well, the other Yang was the interviewer, right? She was like, well, who's going to pay for this? Where's the money going to come from? You're basically saying that government is going to pay. And he said, well, technology, right? Technology is actually what it's going to be coming from, because everything's going to be primarily technology, because really what they're really saying is that if you've been reading and staying up on things, and again, I kind of always implement increments of it at times, right? I don't want to bore you. I don't want to bore you with it's Stevie. That's old Stevie song. But anyway, so that technology is because they trying to make AI like basically humans, right? They want the planet to be run by automation and AI intelligence, right? So basically, if you gonna do that, what's gonna end up happening? It's already niggas out here got diplomas and degrees, they ain't got no jobs, so that shit everybody gonna be like that unless you tech savvy like that, right? You got all that and you doing that, but again, that's not just gonna be a small percentage of that's gonna be able to do that, right? So anyway, so they came up with the grandiose ideal to just say, wait, why don't we just start giving everybody money? We're going to give this freedom dividend, because see, technology, and just look at it this way. When you have a first world country that's already developed and, and everything is in its place and structure and all that other stuff, then what you going to do to build? There ain't nothing to build no more. So the only thing that you got now due to modernization is what they would say is technology. And so technology, there's only going to be so many jobs. It's kind of like everybody trying to get in the NFL and the NBA. There's only so many jobs, so that means there's going to be a lot of people outside of the pale, as they say, right? Outside of the pale. And so what we going to do is, we're just going to give everybody a check. Like socialism. Everybody don't like to remember the other day talking about that capitalism versus socialism, and that's what it's coming down to. Either, you can make the money, you got a scheme, you got a hustle, you got some kind of conniving Ponzi scheme, or you got to be with kind of like, what you got in the bag, Dad? And so they figured out when you look on the scale, there's more people that's going to be on that social side than there's going to be on the capital side. But let me tell you something. Everything that glitter ain't gold. Right? Everything that glitter ain't gold. Anytime you see that buy one, get one free sale, you always thinking that you actually getting something for nothing. Let me say that again. Everything that glitter ain't gold. And anytime you see that buy one, get one free or sale, you might be psychologically thinking you actually benefiting. But in all totality, your ass is actually paying for what you thought when the word said free. So I have to say, wait a minute. Right? Okay, if you're going to give me this money with no string attached, come on, ladies, huh? I'm hollering at you. Come on. Hey, girl, come here. Let me holler at you for a second. Let me take you around. Let me take you. Let me fly you over here. Let me drive. Let me put you on the head here. You know, we're going to go eat here. Let's get a little drink here. Let's go a little dancing here. Huh? You know, I'm tired at the end of the night. Why don't you just, I'm going to take you home. I'm going to stay at the hotel. All right? Is that all right? Oh, you going to come with me? Was that the plan the whole time? Was that the plan? Was that for me the whole thing? Was everything that I was giving you was leading you to get you back to the spot so I can do the do, right? All right. So you giving money, so it got to be some strings attached somewhere, right? Because again, he said, well, you know, money in the hand is good because it's good for business in the market. But see, if we guarantee to give everybody $1,000 in your hand, because that's what they say, they're going to give you $1,000 a month, is kind of live a better life. You know, get an extra $1,000, no string attached. You ain't got to do nothing, and we're just going to give it to you, which is going to be good for the economy because that means you got $1,000 or wherever you live, you're going to be able to stimulate the business, and, you know, that money going to be able to swirl, and, you know, everybody's going to be, you know, it's going to be good for everybody. Then that way there will be nobody with a zero income. It's going to supercharge all the businesses, right? Right? Because why? Because it'll be a first world country with no other growth, right, except for technology. And so this will be good for everybody. But I'm saying, well, after a while, let's say after a while, then you might put some stipulations into it. Because again, when you looked at what Martin Luther King was talking about, and at the end of that article, it said, well, you know, Martin wouldn't like say that it was just totally free. I mean, it could be some constraints where you can make it where, you know, have be a little string attached. Well, that little bit there lets me know that you already it was a foregone conclude as to looking to the future, that how you can get people once they become, it's kind of like the drug game, for those who might know that. You know, again, I guess you could say again, Enter the Dragon, where John Saxon went down in the basement down there with Mr. Han. They said, we are investing in corruption. Oh, the law of demand and supply. Yeah, right. You feed and get them to become dependent, and then, that's right. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to get you with the hook. And then, as time go on, well, you got to do a checkup. You got to take this pill. You got to take this shot. You got to put this chip in. You get what I'm saying? Huh? You know what I'm saying. Right? So he said basically that capitalism is changing, and so the way that everything is changing and going to a more modernization of it, right? Right? Because it's the rise of automation. And so again, with everything being automated, so a lot of people won't be able to be working again, because again, let's just say the transformation of those periods when those who used to be able to get entry-level jobs, it was factory jobs and stuff like that, you was a on-hands person, right? Then the game switched and changed, became a little more technological, but again, if you wasn't in that, you still try to do what you do, and so it ended up happening, you become outsourced. They don't got that kind of work for you no more, especially when somebody was undermining you to taking the company and taking to go to some other country, paying them pennies on the dollar, and then here you sitting here like a wide-eyed fool with nothing to hold in your hand. So here come Mr. Yang. Yang say, I got a bag for you. You want to take this little bag? It'll help you out. It's $1,000, you know, say maybe as a man you ain't got no work or something, your mama got no, but you got $1,000 that you can put in there, you can smile in her face a little bit better, huh? Right. Okay. Whatever he say, right? So he goes on and says this is going to be the historic economic shift, right? The shift that's going to come, this economical shift, due to the simple fact that, again, AI automation and, this people, just look at this as black people, a lot of people who are driving Ubers who got degrees. Well, you thought you went to school and you were going to get this degree and you was going to be this come to lie type person, right? You come to find out your ass ain't shit but pushing a goddamn Uber, which is a cab, right? Nothing wrong with that if anybody should be doing it. No, I ain't. Hey, I'm just saying. We just talking about the transformation of what done took place. And again, that's this economical shift is going to shift everything, right? And so, to get off Mr. Yang here, and you see, he talked about, now, how can we get a Yang win the presidency? Because, in this country here, it's always going to have identity politics, right? Now, we can look at him and see, even though his name is Andrew, never met a Chinese name, Andrew Yang, right? He got that last name, though. And, he said, this old symbolism and this imagery that everybody's all focused on, we got to change that. You know what I'm saying? That whole dynamic is changing. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to focus on that. You just got to understand that who's got the best interest at heart and who's trying to do this. And look, I got a bag for you. For all that, so what, I'm Chinese? Huh? For all that shit. I got some money for your ass. Now, again, as a Democrat person or person who's running under the Democrat Party, is this his consolation prize to black people when it comes to reparations? As I gave you the story that talked about how Julian Castro came out and said straight up, but again, he had a little clause in it too, right? He did have a clause, right? And so that's what ended up happening there, right? So here's, again, Andrew Yang coming out, got a bag in his hand, but the question becomes, what about reparations, right? You gonna throw Martin Luther King in there as to say, see, Martin Luther King would agree with what I'm talking about here. See, if King said it must be good, but let me tell you something here. We love Dr. King for the work he did and took that bullet and the sacrifice of what he did. But then, see, like white folks in the United States do something like this. They always say that the forefathers of the country was kind of like God. They don't make no mistake. Everything they said was no flaws and none of that. Like everything they said could never be wrong. I'm going to say this. As we can look in hindsight of what done transpired before where we at now, we can see some of the things that may have been the wrong move. So to try to, parade in our face and say, see, King was 39 years old when he was left this planet, right? And yes, he was advancing. Yes, he was great. We just saying that again, sometimes when you are amongst other people who are, telling you things and you're learning as you go, maybe you don't see the end of the tunnel. And it's kind of like that's what ended up happening when you see that it talked about in the article, talk about how King was starting to turn from where he was and started focusing on the poor people's campaign. Then they were talking about how he was going to bring the poor people and they were going to put tent cities and sit out there in front of Washington. Got down like Skid Row, thought you going to pull that move in Washington. They weren't going to have that. Huh? You ain't going to remind us. It's kind of like what I say all the time over here, right? Take Dracula and try to show that reflection, let him see himself. He ain't trying to do that, right? So, saying that King was for, a guaranteed income, right? To have an income that would be considered as like the middle class income, right? For all Americans. See right there. Anytime I hear for everybody, it's always the buy one, get one free. And guess what ended up happening at the end? We as black folks somehow don't get the benefit of it. And so, good luck to you, Andrew Young. But again, or Yang, oh, that's a Young. Damn, I made him all black. Andrew Yang, right? Good luck to you, because again, once you hit that black corner, they ain't gonna make it. You still gonna have to hit about the 2020 reparations, just like the article talked about. Kamala Harris had to talk. Cory Booker had to do it. Bernie Sanders had to do it. Oh, Joe Biden gonna have to do it too, and you gonna have to do it too. And as we get more into the show, there's gonna be other people thinking that the only people we look at is Democrats, right? But we gonna get to that. So that's what that is, and there's the introduction to you to Mr. Andrew Yang. So let me see what else I got in the bag for you. Oh yeah, this here. All right. So what I got this in the bag here is this here. Okay, so you know how if you've seen the show the other day, right? Where I showed, everybody talking about the college scandal, right? Everybody talking about how the college scandal and how such a travesty that is, and that it's, it's not fair, and that, people who are meritorious and trying to do the right things, and then here you are undermining them by letting people be able to put money and it's not fair. And it's like, well, again, as I said the last show, it's about the game is rigged. You got to understand that the damn game is rigged, right? So this part here that I'm putting up as I'm talking, that's why I'm taking a little time to make sure I get it right. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be messing up like that. So, you got to look at it this way. So if you got a candidate running out talking about he's willing to give everybody money, right? He's also is attributed to a lot of the automation and where it's getting to the point that you're going to be outsourced. He's part of that too, right? I believe somewhere, because again, I think that the idea that he's using, again, I heard Bill Gates talk about it, and he's also in the technology. So somewhere that's tied in, right? That's what I'm saying. And so, how do you make all this work? How do you get, let's put it this way. How could I, if I was in, you and I just listening to me, we was in a position, we say, well, how do we get these people to eat out of our damn hands and not be so resistant? See, then that would make for us to be ruled while the rest of them be subjugated. So you have to be, diabolical in the way you do it. You have to do it in a way clandestine that they don't catch on to it. And sometimes they tell you, but then you don't see it. So let me show you this first. Okay, we're gonna go with this part first, because again, like I said, it's talking about that scandal, and then this is what had came out the day after, that was yesterday when you seen the show yesterday and this today. Remember, I'm a day behind. So let me play this, and then I'll come back right after this, and then we'll talk about it. Check this out.
The biggest college admissions scandal in U.S. history is spurring legal action by parents and students across the country. 2 lawsuits filed this week allege the scheme denied students who played by the rules a fair chance to win college admission. One suit is seeking $500 billion. Carter Evans is at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, one of the schools caught up in the scandal. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. Full House actress Lori Loughlin is named in one of those new lawsuits. She allegedly paid to cheat her daughter's way here into USC, and now their family is facing financial repercussions.
Here you go. These are on the house.
Lori Loughlin's decade-long relationship with the Hallmark Channel came to an abrupt end Thursday. In a statement, the company said, "We are saddened by recent news surrounding the college admissions allegations. We are no longer working with Lori Loughlin." Loughlin and her husband are among 33 parents charged in the massive college admissions scheme.
My highlight palette with Sephora collection.
The scam allegedly got Loughlin's daughter, Olivia Jade, accepted into USC. The social media influencer has now lost at least 2 endorsement deals with Sephora and Tresemme. The Parents and students who feel they've been hurt by the scam are fighting back with legal action. Jennifer Toy filed a class action lawsuit seeking $500 billion in damages and claiming her son, who had a 4.2 GPA, was rejected from some of the colleges where the cheating took place.
Do you think these lawsuits are going to pay out?
I don't think so.
Some legal and admissions experts say there are so many factors considered in accepting students, it would be difficult for the lawsuits to succeed.
These sound pretty ambitious to see them actually go anywhere. I mean, I do think it speaks to a lot of the anxiety and even anger that some students and certainly parents are feeling about this.
Stanford junior Emma Grover says the admissions process largely relies on students to represent themselves accurately.
There's no way that the university can go through and check, did you actually participate in this? Did you present this paper? Were you the president of this club for every applicant?
Now, USC says it's going to deny admission to at least 6 applicants who are allegedly connected to the scam. Lachlan's daughters are still enrolled here at USC, but in the wake of this scandal, their future, Gail, is uncertain.
Yeah, a lot of people are speaking up about whether they should be allowed to remain at the school. And right now, in the court of public opinion, it's like, nope, time for them to go. Thank you very much, Carter.
When your child brings home their report card, anything less than a 60 is a failing grade. But there's a plan going through the General Assembly that would change your child's school performance scores. A failing grade for the school would be anything less than 40. Here's how it would work. An overall school score of 100 to 85 would be an A. Anything between 84 and 70 would be a B. 69 to 55 would be equivalent to a C. 54 to 40, a passing grade of D. Anything below 40 equals a failing grade or an F. Now, the school report cards from the 2017 school year have county and individual school results. Wake County has just 0.6% failing schools. Cumberland County has 1.2% failing schools, and Durham comes in with 18% failing schools. We put the DPI scores on CBS17.com and the CBS 17 News app. If passed by the legislature, the new school performance scale would go into effect for the 2019-2020 school year.
North Carolina considers dropping F grade to 39% for state public schools. You know I'm going to say that again. North Carolina considers dropping F grade to 39% for state public schools. This story was done in the New York Post, February 27, 2019, and this is how it reads. The bar for failing test scores in North Carolina state public school may be significantly lowered under the proposal of new legislation. House Bill 145, introduced by the North Carolina General Assembly last Thursday, proposed to base grades on a 15 rather than 10-point scale. In other words, an F grade would constitute anything below a 40% score, much lower than the 60% mark that is the norm in North Carolina and most other states, WPLG reported. Under the new scale system, an A would be 100 to 85%, a B would be 84 to 70%, a C would be 69 to 55%, and a D would be 54% to 40%, according to the bill. The scale system would not affect students who are already performing well, but students who are underperforming in school will be allowed to continue. If passed, the law will go into effect beginning with the 2019 through 2020 school year, according to the bill. so we back. So again, talking about the school college scandals of the administration, where it seems that, again, it's not about your merit. It's not about your achievement. It's about how much money you can put up under the table. So some people, after hearing the story after it broke, and then it done made its way around, you know how how good news do, go from ear to ear, gossip to gossip, right? Becomes what they call viral. So what we see a person decide that they were going to sue for $500 billion. They said, give me $500 billion suit, because why? My man was a 4.2 grade point average, and he Asian. You denied him, not in just one school, but several schools that he applied to. He was not able to be administered into your school based on, we believe that he got railroaded. He didn't fill the coffers, but he had the requirements. Now again, sounds like you might have a legitimate, let's say, lawsuit. You might have a legitimacy on your lawsuit, but did you hear how the little administrator that worked there had said some things that I'll get to at the end? But it's kind of funny that, again, okay, you had a 4.2 GPA, but you couldn't get no other kind of scholarships. It's why? Maybe because, you know, now again, this don't knock anybody that should just happen to be like Mr. Yang. Now, Yang is Asian too, right? And I remember not too long ago that the Asians were actually, the case might be still going, where they are suing about suing about affirmative action, saying that they're being discriminated because that there's so many of them getting in that there's a cutoff point, and they said, well, I qualify, and why not? Well, again, see, this greediness, right? That again, as being ADOS, DOS, BADOS in this land, so like everybody is just trying to just, you know, bogart into the aspects of certain lands that's supposed to be, you know, set aside for my people. And so, and I'm looking at this as, okay, maybe this one here, yes, he got a 4.2 grade point average, you understand, but he don't come from nobody that got no Chinese food restaurant where they can put no money together so they could just pay for him to get there. So he was kind of using the system so that he can, you know, benefit off the programs. Now again, there's a lot for each group. Now when you are, you know, I guess in this case, and I will tie this in later because you know, see that second part to this, right? But anyway, so, you know, you don't get in because, again, there's a lot of you getting in of your own people. So you end up, competing against your own people. And I guess that's rightfully so. If we're going to say taxes and allotment and this portion is for this group and this is this for you, once you get that number, then guess what? You're going to have to find other means and ways to do it. You're going to have to work, pay for yourself. Maybe you're not going to be able to aspire to go to that school or wherever it might be. But again, in this case, I don't know how you prove, because even the dude in the video was laughing like, no, you think they're going to be, like, I don't think they're going to, no, they're going to go get it, because the little administrator told you, said, well, you know, how do you expect that the school is going to be able to, you know, follow through on every credential of every student that applies? We have to just go on based on what you're saying and take it as if they're saying is true, right? So you're not gonna be able to hold them to that, right? You know, they got to break the glass case of emergency. They're not gonna let you just come in and talk about 500. But y'all talking about some, what's that movie with the little naked ass cat and shit? We're talking about 100 billion. They're talking about 500 billion. So they went real high, huh? You say, man, he ain't gonna never have to work again. I don't think that kid's gonna make it, homie, but you can keep trying though, right? So it goes on and says that, again, dude said, will they pay the university? He said, no. He said, emphatically, they ain't paying that, right? And so, let's see. He said he sounds ambitious. He said that the agent dude, y'all ambitious, boy. $500 billion, that's some what? Really? I mean, I get it. You know, as they were saying, like, well, you know, parents are angry, the child is angry, you know, everybody is buying into the whole aspect about education. And again, I'm not going to say that education is not beneficial, but school ain't for everybody. But the way that the system is made, and again, you got Andrew Yang talking about, man, ain't gonna be no jobs like that for everybody, because everybody not gonna have the acumen to be into the technology. So now you're just gonna be SOL, which is shit out of luck, trying to be employed in this shit. You understand? So we just gonna start getting motherfuckers checks. So you know, can you imagine that you got a 4.2 and motherfucker somebody gonna give you a check because you can't get, you know what I'm saying? So he all toe up because his life ain't been the way that he had it all panned out. It ain't working. So he said, "Brother, give me $500 billion with a B." This motherfucker want more money. Well, he basically, I don't know, I can't even make that equation, but they trying to take a portion of what they trying to give for reparations that we looking at, right? Yeah, you don't get that anyway. So it says that you know, she said that students must, you know, represent themselves accurately, right? You know how that whole scandal was. Mothers in there talking about they was on the team, wasn't on the team. You know what I'm saying? Putting all these grandiose type of, it was the captain and captain of this and meritorious this and ROTC this and that. You know what I'm saying? They was putting all kind of things on them application. But again, you know what I'm saying? You know, that's a demand. That's a high demand. So they don't have to read. They just know they gonna get the money. You know what I'm saying? So they just picking mugs willy nilly in certain aspects of things. They looking at it and they taking you in, right? So, you know, so again, they have a poster right now. They got that white woman. You know what I'm saying? She an actress and stuff, and they say, "Oh, you and your little daughter, who's a YouTube influencer, right? You done lost some of your sponsors and stuff like that, right?" So they said, you didn't hear nothing about jail. What you heard is, well, they're going to be financially, they're going to lose some money. Money is the game they always had. So you ain't heard them by putting some more money, but you would have heard them if you talking about putting them behind, right? But I guess it's not a crime, as I told you yesterday. That's the old school game of the guilds and how you put the money in the pocket of the master, as well as you get to sit down in front of him or not. So there ain't no crime here. There's other people crying out here, right? So again, let's look at this way. Let me tell you 4.2. Let me tell you what they talking about. That was 4.2, right? Now 4.2 in the old school days might have been, you were saying, somebody smart. Somebody drink the Kool-Aid so good, they could regurgitate every ingredient, huh? Beta carotene, vitamin D, B12, glucose. They tear all that up in there because that's how they get down, right? Now this other story that I had showed you was showing you that again, like in North Carolina, because you know how I say it. If they start over here, it's only a little bit of time before they're going to start implementing it everywhere. So what we see is, did you see that they talking about a House Bill 145 going before the General Assembly? And this bill they talking about is something to do with the performance, huh? They talking about performance scores. You know how these schools, they've been getting on them teachers and talking about these teachers and they fail in schools because why? They say the teachers can't teach, right? They was putting the onus on the teachers. You're in here and these students ain't learning. So now they done came with some new idea. Well, you know how he try to be ingenuous. He tried to come up with some kind of way to be like, well, all right, well, I'm going to make this better. you're not fixing the situation. What you're going to do is you'll come up with a scheme, a Ponzi, right? Some kind of scheme, all right, never mind. So we're going to say this. Did you see how they were putting that, right? They said A. Now, let me, before I say that. They said F now, and it said it started 2019, 2020. So they started this year, this school year in North Carolina, and those schools specifically. That just said that the failing grade is a 39. I say that again. Failing grade is a 39. All right, you 4.2, hear me. This is what I'm saying. So if an A is 100 to 85, what? Wait, 85 was an A? Man, I don't know what school y'all from. Let me school. 85 is an A? What? 85 is an A. They say a 70 is a B. I say a C is a 55. Oh my God. What? A D is a 40. And then you wonder why when you come in there with a 4.2. Now this might be already implemented. Now again, I'm not saying that I can say exact in the fact that my man 4.2 ain't on the highest level of the A side of the game. Because you see the scale, how they done tipped the damn scale, 100 to 89. You playing with 11 points in between and still getting the A. You get a 70 and get a B? Back in the day when I was in school, 65 was a D. 64 down was an F. Shit. Huh? A 70. About D plus maybe? You know what I'm saying? That's a damn B today. So you see systematically, they're dumbing them kids down, talking about a 39. If you had a test and 10 questions, you barely got to get 4 right to pass. Do we see the issue of the problem that, again, as I was saying, if you implement this and people are just mediocre C's, right? Because a C now is a 55. So then we wonder why that this country and the people who've been paying in these colleges and getting these type of jobs that ain't qualified, don't have the aptitude nor the intelligence, and then putting them in these, and then it's disastrous. This shit is disastrous. But this is how they call the remedy. See, it's kind of like they say Western medicine. Motherfucker don't cure shit, but he'll give you some shit to live with, right? He don't cure nothing, but he gonna give you some shit that you can live with. So instead of finding new ways to how to, teach, but then maybe somebody don't want you to be that smart. It's kind of like why I'm the most hated show on the black corner of the internet. I'm suppressed 90 days for what? What did I do? I didn't do nothing. It's just what I'm talking about, right? So, you understand? So they want you to be dumbed down. So here it is, Mr. Blowsurmind come over here, he reading, getting articles, showing you the video, showing the form of, I guess, in their eyes, intelligence, because you supposed to be down there with this 65D ass shit, right? Man, this shit crazy. This some crazy shit right here, yo. I'm gonna say a 39. A 39? You even came home with a 70 top. I got B's. I'm straight B's through with 70s. Where the short bus at for you? Hey, move on, man. Enough of that. Because, see, again, we can't blame them. It's just the system. The system is designed to keep you dumbed down so that why? those who have the acute, again, I'll talk about that when we get there. Let me move on. I'm gonna come back to that. This was mine. I'm gonna come back there. So, all right. So, oh man, boy, I tell you, whoo, that's funny as hell, man. That fucker said 39, a 40 is passing. A fucking 40. Shit, man. That's some wild shit, man. All right, so we're going to get back on this here because I seen this here. Because, you know, motherfucker, this is how people doing, man. People just, you know, they doing all kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you I'm going to run off a few in a row for you, right? Because the reason why I got to do that, well, maybe I won't do that. Maybe I won't do that. Let me get you, because I won't do too much. Let me do this quick here, because this one here. Yeah, let me do these two. Let me see. Let me do this. Let's see. Yeah, let me do this one, because if I do that, that's too much on it. So let me just do this here and here. Right, let me see. Should I do that? Let's see. Let's see. Should I do that? Well, I guess I could, right? I guess I can go ahead and do it. Let me go ahead and do it. Let me go ahead and do it the right way. Thank y'all for being patient with me. Right here, I'm about to pull out. I'm gonna pull some out the bag on them, right? All right. Now, all right. So this here is the simple fact that, again, like I said, about the reparations, and you have people in the black corner of the internet, and what they're doing is they're, you know, galvanizing, using social media to bring awareness and understanding. And then, you know, you have people who've been in the game longer than others, and they feel like, you know, again, like I said, the unorthodox, there's an unorthodoxy on the black corner that seem to be getting some things pushed and moved, where those of a more, you know, older institutions or movement have been doing the work, right? But maybe got stagnated. You understand? Maybe just got stagnated. And, you know, there may be a reason for all that. But this is kind of the conversation. I want to bring it to y'all over here and let y'all be up on it, so you can't say you didn't know. So check this out, and we shall be right back.
I've long believed that this country should address slavery, the original sin of slavery, including by looking at reparations. And if I'm president, then I'm going to appoint a commissioner task force to determine the best way to do that.
Why not support reparations then?
Well, what do you mean by reparations?
By reparations for slave defendants.
I know, but what does that mean exactly?
Money.
Well, I think that right now our job is to address the crises facing the American people and our communities. And I think there are better ways to do that than just writing out a check.
But we have a history of racism in America.
So you are for some type of
Yes, I am.
reparation? Okay.
Yes, I am.
5 years after Ta-Nehisi Coates' seminal article in The Atlantic, The Case for Reparations, and nearly 20 years after the publication of Randall Robinson's landmark book, The Debt, What America Owes to Blacks, the question of reparations for slavery is suddenly back in the news. Joining me now to discuss why that might be is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. She's the lead sponsor of H.R. 40, the longtime bill seeking a national study on reparations. And Mark Thompson, host of Make It Plain on Sirius XM. And Mark is soon to be a member of the National African American Reparations Commission. Thank you guys both for being here. And Mark, I'm going to come to you on this first
pleasure.
because, you know, I interviewed Randall Robinson many years ago, back when this was a really hot button issue back in the sort of early 2000s. And then Ta-Nehisi Coates made it an issue again with his piece 5 years ago. What made it come back now?
Well, I think that obviously with the introduction of H.R. 40 again by Congresswoman Lee, which has been out there, I believe, since 1987, the discussion has not gone away. There are organizations still active about reparations. They don't get a lot of attention in the mainstream media, like the commission you just mentioned, NARC, and also in COBRA, which is having, I think it's 30th annual convention in Detroit this summer. So the discussion is happening, but also, you know, there's some nefarious behavior going on. Just like we saw in 2016, where certain trolls, certain interests outside of the black community that may even appear to be black, like to take an issue, exploit it, and inject it into the presidential race. And that's one of the things we're concerned about now. There are some people who are pushing the issue, but they have an ulterior motive. And if I could explain, whenever you see people online refer to reparations and they only hold Democratic candidates accountable, and then they say if Democratic candidates don't support reparations, then black voters should stay home in 2020, that's how you know those people are genuine representatives of the reparations movement. And we saw that type of exploitation in 2016. We want to make sure that our community this go around is not subjected to sort of what is really a cyber COINTELPRO, where an issue in our community is infiltrated and exploited and used against us. And it's time now more than ever. The organizations like NCOBRA and the National African American Reparations Commission, Joy, speak out to say these are the real and genuine positions on reparations, not what some are saying where they say, well, we don't believe in Pan-Africanism, which is blasphemous to the reparations community. This is 100 years since the first Pan-African Congress held by W.B. Du Bois, when they say that only those who are descendants of slaves in America matter. First of all, many in the black activists and black intellectual community don't even say slaves anymore. We say enslaved people because we embrace the glory of our ancestry. Right. That's a giveaway when you see that type of rhetoric. And then lastly, when people exclusively talk about immediate cash payouts. If a Democratic candidate doesn't support immediate cash payouts, don't support them. Well, in COBRA, the National African American Reparations Commission have been saying it's not even just about that. It's about entrepreneurial development. It's about access to capital. It's about healing, much like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. Yeah. So when you see those other types of things, that's a red flag. And we ask people to support and hear and get behind the legitimate, long-standing reparations organizations.
Yeah, and then just to sort of flesh out what that means in terms of the legislation that you are the lead sponsor of, Congresswoman, what is in that legislation and what would it do?
Well, first of all, good morning, Joy. Good morning, Mark. And I want to take just a moment to connect with my brothers and sisters in New Zealand who suffered a violent, vicious, and terroristic act based on the question of racism and religious denunciation. So this discussion is long overdue as it relates to enslaved people and slaves in the United States. 4 million Africans were enslaved here in the United States. 1 million African Americans have been incarcerated across this nation. H.R. 40 was introduced on the very first day of the United States Congress in 2019 with an array of members coming from across the nation and all manner of backgrounds. They understand that it is long overdue for a national dialogue dealing with what happened to African Americans as slaves. This was an institutionalized and condoned action by the government from 1619 to 1865. De jure and de facto acts have shown the impact of slavery on African Americans. So the bill is not a check. The bill is, as those thoughtful Democratic presidential candidates have said, they have indicated that we have suffered because of racism. We know that the acts of racial white supremacist bias or acts have increased by 182% per the Anti-Defamation League. By the DOJ, Department of Justice, 58% of the incidents of bias were racial, ethnicity, and white supremacists in 2017. So we're asking for, the bill establishes a legitimate commission appointed by the President, the Speaker of the House, the leader of the Senate, and leaders like Dr. Ron Daniels. Of course, this bill was originally introduced by John Conyers and others who have been involved in the movement. Then it goes forward with an appropriations to be real, which is to bring in witnesses, to demand from the various federal agencies what has happened to the African American population. And let me be very clear. Yes, I want the push to be to support H.R. 40, to have a hearing, to move it in a process of reasoned understanding in the regular order of the United States Congress. But let me be very clear. Let us not label the black community, the African American community, as not being the geniuses that they are. The establishment of historically black colleges, astronauts, lawyers, doctors, and others. But we can see the loss of wealth. We can see maternal mortality. We can see the issues of health. All are connected. Does the nation not want to have a viable discussion and best practices and results that may involve HBCUs, and it may involve the restoration of wealth in some form or another? It may resolve in lower taxes that will impact all of America. Does the nation not want to have that kind of discussion? That is what H.R. 40 is all about.
Well, I wish we had more time to have that discussion here. We are out of time, but I know, Mark, on your Twitter feed, there's a lot of information about where people can get more information from NCOBRA online, NCOBRAonline.org. So people, please check that out. HR 40. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Mark Thompson, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. More AM Joy after the break.
The H.R. 40 Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African American Act. You know I'm going to say that again. H.R. 40 Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposal for African American Act. This is how the bill of H.R. 40 says. To address the fundamental injustice, cruelty, brutality, and inhumanity of slavery in the United States and the 13 American colonies between 1619 and 1865, and to establish a commission to study and consider a national apology and proposal for reparations for the institution of slavery, its subsequent de jure and de facto racial and economic discrimination against African Americans, and the impact of these forces on living African Americans, to make recommendations to the Congress on appropriate remedies and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposal for African American Act. Section 2. Findings and Purpose. A. Findings. The Congress finds that 1. Approximately 4 million Africans and their descendants were enslaved in the United States and colonies that became the United States from 1619 to 1865. 2. The institution of slavery was constitutionally and statutorily sanctioned by the government of the United States from 1789 through 1865. 3. The slavery that flourished in the United States constitute an immoral and inhumane deprivation of African life, liberty, African citizenship rights, and cultural heritage, and denied them the fruits of their own labor. 4. A preponderance of scholarly, legal, community evidentiary documentation and popular cultural markers constitute the basis for inquiry into the ongoing effects of the institution of slavery and its legacy of persistent systemic structures of discrimination on living African Americans and society in the United States. And 5. Following the abolition of slavery, the United States government at the federal, state, and local levels continue to perpetuate, condone, and often profit from practices that continue to brutalize and disadvantage African Americans, including sharecropping, convict leasing, Jim Crow, redlining, unequal education, and disproportionate treatment at the hands of the criminal justice system. And 6, as a result of the historic and continued discrimination, African Americans continue to suffer debilitating economic, educational, and health hardships, including but not limited to having nearly 1 million black people incarcerated, an unemployment rate more than twice the current white unemployment rate, and an average of less than 1/16 of the wealth of white families, a disparity which has worsened, not improved, over time. B. Purpose. The purpose of this act is to establish a commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans as a result of 1. The institution of slavery, including both the transatlantic and the domestic trade, which existed from 1565 in colonial Florida and from 1619 through 1865 within the other colonies that became the United States, and which includes the federal and state governments, which constitutionally and statutorily supported the institution of slavery. 2. The de jure and de facto discrimination against freed slaves and their descendants from the end of the Civil War to the present, including economic, political, educational, and social discrimination. The lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and the discrimination described in paragraph 1 and 2 on living African Americans and on society in the United States. 4. The manner in which textual and digital instructional resources and technology are being used to deny the inhumanity of slavery and the crime against humanity of people of African descent in the United States. 5. The role of Northern complicity in the Southern-based institution of slavery. 6. The direct benefits to societal institutions, public and private, including higher education, corporations, religious, and associational. 7. And thus recommend appropriate ways to educate the American public of the Commission's findings. 8. And thus recommends appropriate remedies in consideration of the Commission's findings on the matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And 9. Submit to Congress the results of such examinations together with such recommendations. Section 3. Establishments and duties. Establishment. There is established the Commission to study and develop reparation proposal for African Americans, hereinafter in that act or this act referred to as the Commission. B. Duties. The Commission shall perform the following duties. 1. Identify, compile, and synthesize the relevant corpus of evidentiary documentation of the institution of slavery which exists within the United States and the colonies that became the United States from 1619 through 1865. The Commission's documentation and examination shall include, but not be limited to, the facts related to A. The capture and procurement of Africans. B. The transport of Africans to the United States and the colonies that became the United States for the purpose of enslavement, including their treatment during transport. C. The sale and acquisition of Africans as chattel property in interstate and intrastate commerce. D. The treatment of African slaves in the colonies and the United States, including the deprivation of their freedom, exploitation of their labor, and the destruction of their culture, language, religion, and families. And E. the extensive denial of humanity, sexual abuse, and the chattelization of persons. 2. The role which the federal and state government of the United States supported the institution of slavery in constitutional, statutory provisions, including the extent to which such governments prevented, opposed, or restricted efforts of formerly enslaved Africans and their descendants to repatriate to their homeland. 3. The federal and state laws that discriminate against formerly enslaved Africans and their descendants who were deemed United States citizens from 1868 to the present. 4. The other forms of discrimination in the public and private sectors against freed African slaves and their descendants who were deemed United States citizens from 1868 to the present, including redlining, educational funding discrepancies, and predatory financial practices. 5. The lingering negative effects of the institution of slavery and the matters described in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on living African Americans and on society in the United States. 6. Recommend appropriate ways to educate the American public of the Commission's findings. 7. Recommend appropriate remedies in consideration of the Commission's findings on the matters described in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. In making such recommendations, the Commission shall address, among other issues, the following questions. A. How such recommendations comport with international standards of remedy for wrongs and injuries caused by the state that includes full reparations and special measures as understood by various relevant international protocols, laws, and findings. B. How the government of the United States will offer a formal apology on behalf of the people of the United States for the perpetrations of gross human rights violations and crimes against humanity on African slaves and their descendants. C. How federal laws and policies that continue to disproportionately and negatively affect African Americans as a group and those that perpetuate the lingering effects, materially and psychosocial, can be eliminated. D. How the injuries result from matters described in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 can be reversed and provided appropriate policies, programs, projects, and recommendations for the purpose of reversing the injuries. E. How, in consideration of the Commission's findings, any forms of compensation to the descendants of enslaved Africans is calculated. F. What form of compensation should be awarded, through what instrumentalities, and who should be eligible for such compensation. G. How, in consideration of the Commission's findings, any other forms of rehabilitations or restitutions to African descendants is warranted, and what the form and scope of those measures should be. C. Reports to the Congress. The Commission shall submit a written report of its findings and recommendations to the Congress not later than the date which is 1 year after the date of the first meeting of the Commission held in pursuant to Section 4C. Section 4. Membership. A. Number and appointment. 1. The Commission shall be composed of 13 members who shall be appointed within 90 days after the date of enactment of this Act as follows. A. 3 members shall be appointed by the President. B. 3 members shall be appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives. C. 1 member shall be appointed by the President pro tempore of the Senate. D. 6 members shall be selected from the major civil society and reparation organizations that have historically championed the cause of reparatory justice. 2. All members of the Commission shall be persons who are especially qualified to serve on the Commission by virtue of their education, training, activism, or experience, particularly in the field of African American studies and reparatory justice. B. Terms. The terms of office for members shall be the life of the commission. A vacancy in the commission shall not be affected the powers of the commission and shall be filled in the same manner in which the original appointment was made. C. First meeting. The President shall call the first meeting of the Commission within 120 days after the date of the enactment of this Act, or within 30 days after the date on which legislation is enacted, making appropriations to carry out this Act, whichever date is later. D. Quorum. 7 members of the Commission shall constitute a quorum, but a lesser number may hold hearings. E. Chair and Vice Chair. The Commission shall elect a chair and vice chair from among its members. The terms of office of each shall be the life of the Commission. F. Compensation. 1. Except as provided in paragraph 2, each member of the Commission shall receive compensation at the daily equivalent of the annual rate of the basic pay payable for GS 18 of the General Schedule under Section 5332 of Title 5, United States Code for each day, including travel time during which he or she is engaged in the actual performance of duties vested in the Commission. 2. A member of the Commission who is a full-time officer or employee of the United States or a member of Congress shall receive no additional pay, allowances, or benefit by reasons of his or her service to the Commission. 3. All members of the Commission shall be reimbursed for travel, subsistence, and other necessary expenses incurred by them in the performance of their duties to the extent authorized by Chapter 57 of Title 5, United States Code. Section 5. Power of the Commission. A. Hearings and sessions. The Commission may, for the purpose of carrying out the provisions of this Act, hold such hearings and sit and act at such times and at such places in the United States, and request the attendance and testimony of such witnesses and the production of such books, records, correspondence, memorandum papers, and documents as the Commission considers appropriate. The Commission may invoke the aid of an appropriate United States District Court to require by subpoena or otherwise such attendance, testimonies, or production. B. Powers of subcommittees and members. Any subcommittee or member of the Commission may, if authorized by the Commission, take any action which the Commission is authorized to take by this section. C. Obtaining official data. The Commission may require directly from the head of any department, agency, or instrumentalities of the executive branch of the government available information which the Commission considers useful in the discharge of its duties. All departments, agencies, and instrumentalities of the executive branch of the government shall cooperate with the Commission with respect to such information and shall furnish all information requested by the Commission to extent permitted by law. Section 6. Administration Provisions. A. Staff. The Commission may, without regards to Section 5311B of Title 5 United States Code, appoint and fix the compensation of such personnel as the Commission considers appropriate. B. Applicability of certain civil service laws. The staff of Commission may be appointed without regards to the provisions of Title 5 United States Code, govern appointments in the competitive service, and without regards to the provision of Chapter 51 and Subchapter 3 of Chapter 53 of such titles relating to classification and general schedule pay rates, except that the compensation of any employee of the Commission may not exceed a rate equal to the annual rate of basic pay payable for GS 18 of the General Schedule under Section 5332 of Title 5 United States Code. C. Experts and consultants. The Commission may procure the services of experts and consultants in accordance with the provisions of Section 3109B, Title 5 United States Code, but at rates for individuals not to exceed the daily equivalent of the highest rate payable under Section 5332 of such titles. D. Administrative support services. The Commission may enter into agreement with the administrators of general services for procurement of financial and administrative services necessary for the discharge of duties of the Commission. Payment for such services shall be made by reimbursement for the funds of the Commission in such amounts as may be agreed upon by the Chairman of the Commission and the administrators. E. Contracts. The Commission may 1. Procure supply services and property by contract in accordance with applicable laws and regulations to the extent of in such amounts are provided in appropriation acts, and 2. Enter into contracts with department agencies and instrumentalities of the federal government, state agencies and private firms, institutions and agencies for the conduct of research or surveys, the preparations of reports and other activities necessary for the discharge of duties of the Commission to the extent of in such amount are as provided in the appropriation acts. Section 7. Termination. The Commission shall terminate 90 days after the date on which the Commission submits its report to the Congress under Section 3C. Section 8. Authorization of appropriations. To carry out the provisions of this Act, there are authorized to be appropriated $12 million. Sheila Jackson Lee, CBC seeks to amend 1964 Civil Rights Act. You know I'm going to say that again. Sheila Jackson Lee, CBC seeks to amend 1964 Civil Rights Act. This story was done January 5th, 2019, coming from CDN. And this is how this reads. Washington. Pushing the Equality Act, an amendment to the very important 1964 Civil Rights Act. Sheila Jackson Lee and black congresspeople are liable to engage the rage of their black constituency by giving LGBTQ or any other protected group the same rights under the original act, mean diluting its importance to black Americans and history. In 1972, the King of Soul and Soul Brother #1, James Brown, wrote and recorded funk protest anthem, Talking Loud, Saying Nothing, to voice his disgust with politicians who were running their mouths but had no knowledge, who were telling the people one thing while manipulating their emotions for personal gain. Then in 1975, the Bee Gees' Jive Talkin' topped the U.S. Billboard magazine charts. It was an epical comeback hit from an Australian rock band that failed to climb the charts for nearly 5 years. These classic oldies best summarize the crass hypocrisy of Democratic Congressional Black Caucus member Sheila Jackson Lee, dressed herself up as a reincarnated Harriet Tubman. However, she is just a female version of the lowest type of race hustler. Jackson fiends being for the people like all the other sorry kumbaya caucus minstrels, when in reality it's all about what Sheila can get for herself. However, to keep her 3-card Monte game alive, Jackson Lee does a race-baiting soft shoe dance to virtual signals to black folks who have not figured out she's a narcissistic careerist. Jackson Lee is first elected to Congress in 1995. In more than 2 decades, the Congresswoman has a legislative record that is as boring as her first plate. Her recent promise to reintroduce disgraced former Congressman John Conyers' H.R. 40, aka Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposal for African American Acts, is laughable. Jackson Lee promised to get H.R. 40 back in Congress is a phony, self-serving ploy to gain national recognition among black voters, because Jackson Lee craves to have a presidential cabinet position in 2020. Therefore, she is preeminently giving herself race woman insurance policy to deflect from the hailstorm of anger among African Americans. The 116th Congress. The 116th Congress has started with the victorious Democrats who have taken the House of Representatives, acting out by promoting radical policies that public neither needs nor wants and making empty promises. In the case of the Honorable Sheila Jackson Lee, she dusted off #MeToo, take down sex scandal king former Congressman John Conyers commissioned to study and develop reparation proposal for African Americans Act, H.R. 40. This act was initially introduced in 1989, being unsuccessfully introduced an additional 14 times. It is of no surprise that Jackson Lee would revere Conyers, a career politician who served 26 terms in Congress, enriching himself. However, Conyers, whose tenure in office parallels his district in Detroit, which was once America's prosperous industrial urban hub, Detroit, which deteriorated into a ruin resembling Hiroshima post-war Tokyo after General Curtis Lee May's plane bombed it. It says, in that same vein, Jackson Lee emulates Conyers' liberal race card, playing political theatrics that does nothing for constituents in her congressional district. Jackson Lee and her colleagues Barbara Lee and Maxine Waters all suffer from media attention deficit disorder as they engage in headlines harlotry similar to their ailing friend Jesse Jackson. Meanwhile, Jackson Lee et al. Are ignoring the traumatized and suffering Houstonians, victims of Hurricane Harvey aftermath and insistent and gross police brutality, the victims of inferior medical services and illegal alien criminality. Victims of shameful environmental injustice can count on nothing from Jackson Lee or her Texas Democratic delegation colleague Al Green. Remember now, Speaker Nancy Pelosi spent $875,000 in settlement money to cover her sexual abuse case of her ex-staffer Lucinda Daniels. In reality, as long as folks like Al Green and Sheila Jackson Lee keeps Nancy Pelosi happy trying to get President Trump impeached, they'll have safe seats. Nonetheless, serving their constituents is not now, nor has ever been a priority. Broken promises to Black America. In 2018, Maxine Waters promised African American activists and National Coalition of Blacks in COBRA that Democrats once in control of the House will support reparations, which never happened in the last 14 times it was introduced. Jackson Lee's empty promise regarding the Equality Act is a boondoggle because after 30 years of H.R. 40 being in existence, this proposal should have grown legs and mass support. Unfortunately, legs it does not have, and most blacks have never heard the Reparation Act. It is interesting to note that Japanese Americans and Jewish Americans have long since received reparations, despite their suffering was far less than the hundreds of years blacks suffered under slavery and Jim Crow. The demand for black reparations is an empty and cowardly gesture on the part of Jackson Lee, Waters, Lee, and Conyers. There's no black in the House or Senate with the nerve or negotiation skills of the late Honorable Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Powell was a black activist during his 12 terms in the House of Representatives. Powell fought for the advancement of African American rights, fair employment practice, and bans on poll taxes and lynching. Not one of the aforementioned present-day Congress people has the fortitude of Powell. Instead, Sheila Jackson Lee and all her black female congressional colleagues are serfs. They hour their souls to groups like Emily's List, Planned Parenthood, and Hillary Clinton's feminists. They are the property of special interests and corporations that give her campaign cash. Additionally, as blacks realize their betrayal by the Congressional Black Caucus supporting the Equality Act, they will start fighting back. The Equality Act will amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Jury Selection and Service Act, and several laws regarding employment with the federal government to include LGBTQ individuals. An act they may very well push the black community further down the totem pole. Sheila Jackson Lee, a dismal congressional record. Jackson Lee has never gotten any significant legislation on her own ratified. She has a well-earned reputation as being an off-putting, angry black woman. Thus, Jackson Lee's established record for mediocrity renders her claim to be able to get any traction on a reparation effort no more than a confabulation on steroids. A rage will ignite when black discover that Jackson support the erasure of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and Fair Housing Act of 1968 in favor of the Equality Act. However, Democrats did not wholly celebrate the civil rights. Fact check. More Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act as a percentage than Democrats did. Black Americans need to be aware that the 1964 Act is a critically important legislative firewall that protects African Americans from Jim Crow and era discriminations. Jackson Lee, a Yale Law School graduate and former judge, is not a fool. Therefore, she's backing reparation to win friends and influence people that otherwise may want to vote her out of office. Additionally, in most of her Congressional Black Caucus, CBC colleagues know Jackson Lee can sense the encroaching obsolescence of their caucus to millennials who are not enthusiastic about voting or anyone over 30. When one considers the necessary statesmanship that securing the introduction and passage of H.R. 40 will require in a very conservative and polarized Congress, considering that many African Americans are divided on the issue of reparations, it becomes crystal clear that this initiative is going nowhere with a fool at the wheel of this ship. Sheila Jackson Lee, CBCC. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. It was a little long. A lot of information that was given on that, right? So we got to go all the way back to when it was the Joy Reid Show, right? You had the Joy Reid Show on there, and they had the Sheila Jackson Lee on there, and they had that Mark Thompson on there, right? And you see that they had the Mark Thompson go on there, and he was talking about in Cobra, right? And he was talking about Narco, right? these organizations, and that I guess he's kind of like a representation of those, right? And so you see that he started talking about, for those in the black corner of the internet, and those that you heard, as you hear me say, ADOS, DOS, BADOS, right? And that's just really signifying that, again, those who are in agreement to, you have Yvette Carnell and the Breaking Brown, and you have Tone Talks from Antonio Moore, and I think there's a Darity is the last name, is the economist, I think, the one that's a dude. All of them, and there's some other people as well. And, they came together, and they have been presenting statistics and data to validate their charge for reparations. And it's like you have groups that have been in the game, like if we say that the Cobra has been in the game, because again, you heard that Mark Thompson said that 30 years commemoration of the organization. Whereas ironically that this bill that supposedly originate when we talk about the HR 40 bill is in 1989. You put 30 on 1989 to get 2019. So I guess they have a long tenure, so they feel like they've been doing it the longest. Now, again, just because somebody does something longer and doesn't get results, don't mean that you can't be recognized for the work that you do. It's just that maybe it ran its course. It's like, having a limitation, right? There's a certain level that maybe you can only obtain, and you hit a wall. And based on maybe the ideology, maybe could be some things that are going on that may be hindering it, that again, something else comes along. And to say that the individuals who they talked about, no one's talked about Dr. Claude Anderson and all the work he's done. In fact, I think he got more than 30 years, but they did not mention his. And matter of fact, I think he tried to go before Obama, and Obama kind of shied that off. And again, he's been, I think, trying to go through litigations on his own and not have the kind of, support, that these other organizations that should have been supporting him, but they don't even mention him as well. But somehow that what's going on the black corner of the internet, and the galvanization that has happened, that ADOS has, invigorated people who had maybe no knowledge or even notion about none of that, had revived that. And so it looks like that there's a lot of people who are taking offense, because I see a lot of things I've been talking about, sexual preference and things of that. Again, I myself am looking at this as long term. Again, I understand what some people and why they do what they do when they talk about, maybe there could be another agenda to it. Okay, to each his own, how you look at that. But as for me, as for my ancestors, and for prosperity and that to come, my whole existence at this point would to be supporting whoever can get the push the ball and score the goal. Doesn't mean we don't give, respect to those who have been put in the work. But again, you got to ask yourself, if you didn't get chose, let's say the Creator chooses someone and puts that on that person or persons, how can you try to defy what someone has ordained? And so you have a lot of naysayers saying a lot of things and implicating, like people have this as, let's go into this. You see that the Mark Thompson has said about this some nefarious behaviors going on, like the 2016. Now, those again who again, subscribers and avid watchers of the show, remember when I debunk that whole thing about Russian bots in 2016, and the reason why Hillary Clinton didn't win due to the simple fact that black folks didn't win, and yet you've seen the statistics and the data that showed that that she actually, according to what they stated, that she had won by over 1 million and something more votes. But that's not how you win the presidency. The presidency is won by electoral college. Now again, black people are going to live what black people live in. Now again, you're going to have the assorted nuts living in certain areas that may be not so heavy, densely populated with DOS, ADOS, and BADOS. So you can't blame black folks for not being in those congregated areas that would have given you more of a electoral votes. So to say that the reason why a person didn't win had something to do because Russians seem to have slanted our own minds. See, that's, to me, it's like you're trying to downplay and say that we don't have a mind to think of our own. You think that because you go into an institution that they call them higher learning and you come out there with a degree that makes you somehow more intelligent. You know, education can be earned and learned from a lot of different facets of ways of, you know, just existing. Now, when you go into those institutions, if you understand the history and how that all came to about, you're doing nothing but being fashioned so that you can be an intricate part in Nebuchadnezzar's system. Well, I need to say that again. See, with the whole history of when you're talking about how a college began, and understand that those in this country who are the powers that run and manipulate this capitalistic society, because this is a merchant's land. Let's get that straight. This is the merchant's land. The merchants is the one who stole this country from that which was the original when you're talking about the Hudson Bay Company and then you're talking about the Virginia Company. It was the merchants who stole that from them, because one thing most people haven't figured out is who was the Britain fighting. You said United States, but who was that? Who was those people? Those was them merchants who had them charters. You understand? And so to say that 2016 that we were undermined by people influencing us to do something in itself is nefarious. By even insinuating that without any proof seems like defamation to me. So he goes on and he says, call them certain trolls. With outside of the black community. That even appear they may not even be black. Right? They take the issue and inject it into the presidential, let's say the president's, what is that again? It says up into their president's, the campaign. Now let's look at that. You would say for whatever purpose that need be said, I don't know why a person who is talking about reparations will be talking about trolls and outside of the community and not being black. Well, most of the people that you hear and see, you should be able to tell whether they black. You should be able to see if they black. And then to say that because they propagate to candidates about the same thing that you yourself in your organization have been for 30 years plus, that people that had become on the online in the black corner of the internet were able to do look at the fact of the timing. Look at the timing. It should happen to be the 400-year commemoration. The day and age that we are in is social media. There's nothing wrong with suited and booted on the ground. But when most of the people are leaving television and moving and ushering in through social media, wouldn't it have been incumbent on an organization to do the same thing so that they can have that and other instead of just being a local organization? But that's what happened with a lot of black organizations. A lot of black organizations supposedly have a nation or national view, but primarily be local about how they do. And so to say that infusing, about reparations to only Democratic candidates, why would you be having an issue with that when that is the catalyst that you and the organization that you stand for is about? Gotta ask yourself when somebody's saying that, what is your issue? Oh, is it because it isn't you? It's not you? Well, again, it says that the Creator chooses and picks whom He chooses, not who you choose. Matter of fact, those who know them scriptures know about how David, right? Jesse had how many sons? He had son that looked like he was the one to be picked. He looked the part. Nope, not him. Give me the next one. Nope, not him. Give me the next one. No, 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 not him. Give me the next one. Then who comes in? The fat little ruddy one. That's the one. That's the one. See, you don't get to choose who is anointed. The anointed is going to be chosen not because what you've done and what you say. Obviously, you hit a dead end. And so here it is, a sister and a brother got together with some other people, came up with stats and data. And here y'all is having a problem because they could get something ignited and fire and get it in the mouths of Pharaoh. Huh? They got it in the mouths of Pharaoh. And y'all have issues with that. Because why? We're going to find out why that is. Right? We're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out. So he says, one of the things that they could be concerned about, those who are pushing reparation have an ulterior motive. You know what the ulterior motive is? That black folks tired. Black folks tired. That's all the ulterior motive you need. Black folks tired of the bullshit. Black people see everybody do everything, and yet they can't get in their own land that their ancestors done build, and you and others people are sitting out here trying to vibe to get, because again they want to be able to get they want the meat before it get to the bone. Huh? They want to get the meat before it gets down to the bone. And because people want to have the self-aggrandizement to say that they did. But again, as I gave you the analogy about Jesse and his son and the one, yo, not you, you weren't chosen. And y'all don't recognize that. So I don't understand how these people talking about they so spiritual and yet can't see that you were not picked. Has nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, I take that same book with another story about those at the time when they was wandering in the wilderness. It said that they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years going in circles, and yet the promised land was just on the outskirt. But what happened? It had to wait for certain people to die off. They were not supposed to be able to get in to the promised land. So that can be the same thing when you look at some of these organizations. Yes, you have long tenure. Yes, you've been doing work, but you were not chosen. And so some people have the mindset to say, because I'm not chosen, that if we can't do it, we're going to destroy it and nobody going to get it. Then was you really in it for what you say it was? Need I say that again? If your whole, as you say, ulterior motive was to get the job done, should it matter who gets it done? As long as it gets done, get in the mouths, get on the table, and get executed. But that ain't what y'all talking about. People want to have the monuments and statues to be commemorated for their own self-ulterior motives. How about that? Right? So it says, if you see people on the internet, online, refer to reparations, the only holding Democrats, right? That's what he said. You only online and you see people talking about reparation and they only holding the Democrats, be skeptical of them. Those might be Russian bots. Those are those certain trolls. Think about this. Democratically, as black Americans, ADOS, BADOS, DOS in this land, wasn't Democrat pretty much the go-to party that black people that somehow under some hypnosis were the party of black people? That's where they went. Unless you got money, you might go, primarily you're going to go with the Republicans. But primarily, most black people are Democrats. So guess who's going to be the candidate that black people would be looking at? It's going to be Democrats. And so if you come out the gate, you just happen to come out at this gate after you done already had the so-called black man in the White House. After 8 years of that, people now have woken up at a different kind of energy due to, again, social media. Social media has brought a certain element. The creator has chosen certain people. We're out here doing what we do, and it has caused the corner that the builders reject. And a lot of people who cannot get in the game and do what they can do are having problems with it. And so now you're kind of chiding with the side of those individuals, right? Chiding with the side of those individuals to go against what yet you say you claim you stand for. And so you say that when them online and they're referring to Democrats, well, what was it that they said that wasn't factual? Point out the facts. Will somebody question somebody's blackness? Well, why shouldn't we be questioning somebody's blackness after we got 8 years of getting what we got on that one? We ain't supposed to say nothing? Oh, that's what the whole gig is. Leave it up to y'all, because when you had one in there, what happens then? Don't say nothing. He the first one. We don't want to do that because give him time. Give him on his next turn. All that y'all did, where was all this talk then? Huh? Where was all the talk then? I'm not saying that you didn't have somebody on the ground doing what it do, but it didn't get there. So here it is, this sister and this brother has done what they done, got it in the mouth, and now here y'all coming out again trying to make yourself look like something. But again, those who got eyes can see what this really is. Right? We can see what it is. And talking about, well, we questioning the Democrat. Well, who are we supposed to come? If you coming out and thinking that you just gonna get the vote, why can't we hold you to some standard? Why can't we hold you to some promises? Isn't that what every other group does? So here you is talking about your own people, because you got some people who willing now compared to those before. Let's just say if the first one would have came out, and then let's say that dude come out now, we hold his feet to the damn fire. He ain't getting in. See, y'all, the way you do it, the way y'all do it, you can get in, and then promises, they won't keep, and y'all cool with that. Then you look and say, we'll go get it on the next one. Black folks tired. Black folks tired. And so, here's some cat that's saying what he's saying. He said, if he says that you got people online that if the Democratic candidate don't support reparations, don't vote. What's wrong with that? Not saying that I'd say that, but I say if somebody's saying that, what they saying? If you ain't got nothing in the bag for me, we ain't got nothing for you. So you still saying, well, you ain't got to get nothing but that, you know what I'm saying, but that ain't how we get out. If you ain't getting nothing, what difference does it matter? If nobody's going to promise to hold you nothing, then what would be the point of you still trying to vote and ain't nobody? Look at the conditions we've been in since when? So they ain't never worked. So here y'all got a problem with people holding people's feet to the fire and making them accountable for the shit. And y'all got a problem with it. So who really got the ulterior motive here? Who's really got the ulterior motive? Right? So he goes on and says that he said if they do that, they're not part of the reparation movement. I don't think the movement is exclusively to any organization. I'm going to say that again. There ain't no reparation movement organization that can claim this only for them. You know what makes this part of the club? Are you a descendant of that which we talking about? Put you in the club. Got nothing to do about no organization. Now, organization may have something to do with when you get the commission and setting up and having people in there who represent and making sure things right. I give you that. But you can't make this exclusively about no organization, because your blood don't trump my blood. My blood tied to it. Ain't nothing about your organization gonna trump nothing I'm doing, more talking about. So who has ulterior motive here, right? So it goes on and says that now you referred to that 2016. This is the second time he mentioned that 2016. As if again Russia is influencing us. But this is supposed to be a black man, right? You're a black man. So I'm like, okay. You're a black man, but again, you using the same tactics that some other people had used, trying to do the same thing, that most of them end up not even have no claim in it. Now they're going to try to get somebody because they say organization. So I have to ask, the ulterior motive must be some inclusiveness. It must be some ties somewhere with them same folks. So it must be either some kind of fraternization, some organizations, some 501c3s, something ties to make, because I don't understand how if black folks who online at this period of time that the Spirit came in on the 400-year commemorative moment, are trying to hold people to do what they need to be done, because you need to expedite this. You don't need no commission. You know what's done already been done. So y'all got a problem, and somebody said, cut the check. You know why? That organization, that ADOS organization, right, or that community, had put the data out. And in that data shows black people are at, dangerous crossroads. You understand? We're at a dangerous crossroad right now. And so somebody's sitting here and people are here bickering and making confusion and trying to pick it. I have to say, what is your ulterior motive? What's your ulterior motive? And saying that the only movement that's only genuine and authentic is yours. We beg your pardon. We of the blood, we cut from the cloth like you cut from the cloth. What makes you more precedent than what we're trying to do? And we've been sitting back and we've been watching, and if you've been in existence before, if say people been doing what they doing, and to see that there's come for none. It's not saying that your work ain't appreciated and ain't nobody gonna give no respect to it. But it doesn't hit a road. It doesn't hit a bump in the road. It doesn't hit a wall. And here it is. Somebody has got it to get in the mouth of the politicians. And here y'all coming out the damn woodwork with all this nonsense. I have to question y'all alternative motive. Then to infuse the conversation, to say this out of your mouth about COINTELPRO, to say, to implicate that people that you see, hear, and understand where they coming from, that this got to be COINTELPRO. Wow. Huh? You would say that? Coming from the state you coming from, you would say that? Wow. You saying that COINTEL is infiltrating the community. Now again, if y'all suited and booted on the ground, this is in the internet. Right? This social media. And somebody has put out that I think y'all just getting into that game. So you late to the party. If you was on your A game, you should already been in the game and been able to do it. But that ain't what. Cut it out, man. Cut it, man. So again, it says it's time for these reparation movements to speak out. Y'all can speak out as much as y'all want. But I don't think you got no stamp on what individuals and people who collectively working in unison without the organization, but through the spirit that has been given. And that's what y'all not understanding. You're not understanding that the people that are seen to be systematically, when you look in the black corner, are not really in the organization. They have what in common, which is the spirit, which makes it an organization. And it's being felt all in this country. Making people like yourselves coming out and using and talking these points that don't make sense if the whole agenda is about getting to the goal line. It's not about, it's like saying, for instance, back in the day when Scottie Pippen, after Jordan was not on the team, they were playing a team, it was like 2 seconds left on the clock. Tony Kukoc was on the team at this time with Scottie. Phil Jackson didn't call Scottie Pippen's number. Scottie Pippen got mad. That's when Scottie Pippen threw the damn chair on the goddamn court. Did anybody remember that shit? Scottie Pippen threw the damn chair on the court. Sat his ass on the bench. Ran the play. Tony Kukoc hit the game winner and the Bulls won. Now, what are you saying, Mr. Blow Your Mind? See? Sometimes when the coach says, we're not going to run it to you, I got a feeling it's supposed to go to this one instead of giving it to you. But yeah, you might be the man. Right? And yes, playing sports, you be mad as hell. But if the end result is you won the damn game, then what's the true motive of you and why you mad? You still won. Wasn't that the objective at the end, was to win the damn game? No? Okay. So, okay. So now it goes on and says that y'all want to go ahead and y'all the genuine ideas of what reparations is, not these who say they're not for Pan-Africanism. See? Let me show you something. Now, the HR 40 bill, right, or for the commission, right, it says specifically for the people from 1619 to 1865. Says something about 1565 or 1556. Again, that's for the Floridas, and that's Spain, right? So, what would Pan-African have to do with that particular period of time? See, the problem is the game that, again, you're taking an ideology at a period of time that at that time, that was a great thing for unification of people who was more, maybe, I can't say whether they were more or less or lost or not. I can't say that. But let's just say, and let me say this on record. A lot of people, they talk about what Marcus Garvey, and they say how Marcus Garvey, his galvanization and how his movement and how he galvanized so many people. But you know what people don't say? You know what people don't say? Black folks was migrating out the South during that damn time. The Great Migrations was happening at that time. So there was a lot of traversing across and coming across them places too. And so guess what? They coming from where they coming. Somebody out there talking like they talking. Look, they coming because they was running. See, people want to say that they were running because they were trying to get a better life. They were running because them down there was lynching and killing. So here's somebody talking. You ain't trying to hear? Huh? So I'm not taking nothing to belittle what Marcus Garvey did, but everybody not acting as if like there wasn't a traversing of migration that was happening. And yet, the same person couldn't do that in his own homeland. Everything that come through what y'all talking about starts here. Matter of fact, the ideology that y'all take on that Pan-Africanism, why aren't you talking about the ADOS who was born here? Why aren't y'all talking about he came here to learn it from Booker T? But y'all ain't going to talk about that. You're going to give him the credit and say that he's the father of it when he wasn't the father of it. But y'all going to say that. And then because again, I don't think Book was down for that. He was down for his own folks. Right? So this whole thing of making everything, so we got to wait to get everybody on unison in order for something to manifest. Huh? Somebody, you self-hating, you don't like that. That ain't what I'm saying. That don't mean no descendancy that reside in me don't come from Africa, but me, myself, and the descendancy of this modern, I land and been here. And this whole shit about, the real legitimates, the ones, the activists and the intellectuals don't say slave, we say enslaved. Well, God damn it, let me say this. Our ancestors was enslaved. Those who were produced after that, still slaved. Do I need to say that again? Our ancestors might have been enslaved. But those who've been since then, and all that then transpired after 1865, we've been slaved. You just ain't on no plantation and got no chains on your ass. What about that shit? Huh? So, let me get on with this, man, because I'm already at the 2:40 mark, right? So he goes on and he says that that's blasphemous that you don't include them. Why is it this? Let me say this too. How is it that people who come from other land masses can claim the land that they come from? They'll say, I'm Nigerian, I'm Jamaican, I'm Haitian. But when it's the black American and he wants to claim here, he got to be the damn African. Do I got to say that shit again? How is it that everybody can come to the United States, come here, and when they tell you they Nigerian, they from Kenya, they from Haiti, they from Puerto Rico, they from Guatemala, but when the black American want to say he from here, he wrong as fuck, and he got to be an African. You, man, ooh, hold on, man, let me slow that up. Huh? Motherfucker crazy. Y'all crazy with that shit, man. So, 100 years since the boys, right? That's what I heard him say. He said, 100 years from the boys. Let me just say this. The boys had a problem with Garvey, didn't he? He said he was black and ugly. However, he wear coochie down to the socks. Ring was filled with rocks. Huh? He was singing the Biggie part. Marcus Garvey had to sing the Biggie part to him. He was calling him black and ugly, right? He must really love Africa. He was really pan-African. But when he said that, though, right? Huh? Matter of fact, that talented 10th shit is a part that eugenics shit that felt like only the elite blacks should only want to be one who make babies, right? Wasn't them the same ones on that? That's who y'all down with, right? That's who they down with, right? Man, get out of here with that, man. That's who y'all down with, right? So again, it says that that only of these American slaves or the American ones matter. You goddamn right. That's what the H.R. Bill 40 is talking about. H.R. 40 bill ain't talking about all of Africa, all of the islands. Now again, this ain't against nobody. I understand we all been through the plight. I understand we all connected. It's a root when it come back to Africa. But this here is specific. It is designed specifically for specifically distinct people. And why do everybody got a problem with that shit? It's crazy, man. It's fucking crazy. So, it says we embrace the ancestors because y'all don't say slave. And we don't. So if I was to take the synonyms of the word slave and enslave, you couldn't even tell the difference. You wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. Never mind. Anyway. So it goes on, it says, if you say we don't give it away for cash only, and people sitting there talking like that, they not down with the reparation movement. Mama just saying cutting the check. That's all they saying. We know that it's more than just the money, but money is one of the biggest component that, you know, people who've been detrimented the way we've been, you need some kind of economics, right? You need something. All the tangibles are just talking about our education. That's time. We're talking about with property, money, all that stuff is things that could be done immediately to change your situation. So if you want to say, because somebody talking about money only, ain't nobody just saying no money only. But we're not going to take money off the damn table. Now, if you don't want yours, that's fine. Sign it over. Anyway, I'm going to get done with that. Now I'm done with that part. Now, this part here. You see, when Sheila Jackson started speaking, she said right off the bat that the conversation for this is long overdue. Now, let's see. Now, here she is. She said her first words coming out of her mouth was, this was long overdue. So here y'all been in the business 30 and this other one, all that. Y'all been in the business over half a century. And we still talking about a commission just to do what? To have a, as Sheila Jackson said, a viable conversation. That's it. See, you see, when the house nigga is trying to deal with Massa, he trying not to make Massa upset and get angry. The field nigga like, fuck all that shit. Time to do some shit, man. Why you lollygagging? Why we dragging our damn feet with this shit? Let's get some shit moving. And here, old house nigga talking about, you can't do it like that. Okay. So she said now again, she's the one who introduced, Congress on this 1st of January of 2019. This bill been around since '89. You know why you introducing this bill in 2019? We're going to show you why you did that. I already done played the article. And she said, yes, she wants a push on the H.R. 40, right? But again, with reasons of the order of how Congress, we don't want nothing to precede it like this stuff that's already going on. We don't want to jump over everything else. We're just going to wait till our time. See, this is bullshit. This bullshit. This is, as you said, long overdue. This needs to be expedited. If you're going to be, if they talking about any seriousness, why can't it be expedited? Why they still need more time and more time, more time? Why? More time is given to then, if you know all the shit that you're saying, when it comes down to the list of historical shit that we've been going through, right? More time to go kill them off. Is that what we want? So you want viable discussion, best practice, and HBCUs? Almost choked on that, huh? Man, I tell you. So then at the end of the show, did y'all see how it said the legit orgs, the legit organizations to follow and support? If you legit, let me say it this way. If you got game and you thorough, you ain't got to put no sign up and say that. It's gonna show. It's gonna be what it is. But when you doing that, that sound like you kind of a little weak, right? Like not so. It's you telecasting that. Hey, don't let them us. See, because obviously somebody else must be stronger, and you trying to downplay them to give you accreditation. But again, it's about who got chosen, right? And these are the external forces intent on sowing confusion to suppress the black vote in the ascendancy of this reactionary force. Oh, man. I'm telling you, man. See, the thing is, a lot of y'all think we really not that smart because you're not accredited and we're not lettered as you might be lettered. But, sometimes you just have a vision to be able to see through things, no matter how you try to put it. That don't mean that you can't see through it, right? So when you see Sheila Jackson, and this is the one that you now have her as part of the H.R. 40 bill, did you see the slickness of the 1964 civil rights being given it and devaluating it, lessening the strength of it? Huh? By adding the LGBTQ in it? Oh, ain't that something? So who really for us? Who really for us? Stop playing. Stop playing. Y'all playing. People in it because why? They want the money. They said at the end of the H.R. 40 bill, did you hear what it says? $12 million. Somebody already counting that money and trying to figure out how to divvy up and put it in their pockets. Because all that's going to be is just nothing but a conversation. Just dragging the feet. Get some water. I'm at the 2-hour 53 minute. Let me go and close this out. I had more to go. Matter of fact, I'm going to do this on the way out. Let's do this. I ain't going to say no more. I done said enough, right? I done said enough. But we're going to ride out like this, though. See, there's an issue here, man. See, everybody gets to come here and they take They hide. They say all kinds of things. They don't mean what the hell they're really doing. And then when you get some people who are going against not doing it the way the status quo want it, here they come. They're going to bring them out the woodworks. Trying to make you, trying to submit to the way they want it done. They couldn't get it to where it's at. And we're going to keep backing ADOS. We're going to keep backing the support of Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore, and Darity. We're going to keep supporting them. They got it in their mouth. You might have done the work. But I see so many people going out trying to, again, throw shade. And I have to say, when somebody doing that, going on out their way, what's your ulterior motive? Right? What's your ulterior motive? So let me go ahead and let me give it this, and we're going to rock it out. Let's see. Let me do this here. So we're going, I'm going ahead and do this. And I'm going to let this be self-explanatory. I'm going to let these be what it is. This is just what it is. I don't got to say nothing. And so if you don't hear me at the end of that, this Mr. Blows Your Mind come with another thought-provoking topic, another show. Didn't mean it for it to be this long, but again, I had to do what I had to do. So again, when you see what another one, get that universal now. What's good, brother? What's good, sister? John Henry Clark said, we ain't got no friends. All we got is each other. And even some of us having issues with one another. To the next show, y'all. Stay black, peace, love, and all that. But the show ain't over. Hold on. Hold on.
And many Americans believe they're competing for jobs with a growing number of undocumented immigrants. That's according to a Rasmussen report survey conducted just last August. The poll also showed a racial divide between whites and blacks, showing that most white people do believe immigrants are taking jobs away from them, while most black respondents disagreed. To discuss this, we're being joined now by Mr. Ted Hayes. He's a civil rights activist. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Hayes. So can I ask you about this? Do you agree or disagree with the poll? Do you think, do African Americans think that illegal immigrants take jobs away from them?
Absolutely. I don't know where this other person's getting their information from, but I'm on the ground out here in Los Angeles. We call LA Occupy Los Angeles because we have lost all of our rights. Essentially, black people in LA have been indemnified. We can't even go in the neighborhoods that were once black for fear of getting shot, beaten up, threatened, what have you. So, no, and it's not just about jobs, it's about housing, education, health care. It's about our 14th Amendment birthright that they're stealing from us. And I don't blame the people. I do not blame the people. I blame my government for failing to protect us according to the Constitution of the United States.
Well, do you agree with President Trump, then, that illegal immigration hurts black citizens more than it does other Americans?
Oh, there's no question about it. And not just in the physical realm of jobs and housing, health care, but it's the whole realm of our identity. For example, you've heard of anchorism, that is anchor babies, women that come to the country illegally and they have a baby and that child becomes a citizen. That is totally wrong. That belongs to the freed slaves.
Hold on, you're saying you're talking about anchor babies. I mean, I want to touch on that. So you are against the so-called anchor babies, the babies that were born in the United States, given our Constitution, a constitutional right that those children are American citizens. So you disagree with that law?
That is not true. They've twisted that. It's a custom. If you please take the time and you go to my website and you can study it, tedhayes.us. They have twisted the 14th Amendment to mean them. It is not. Read the Civil Rights Act of 1866 where it identifies slaves. That was who it's for. It's been a custom and we're going to prove it real soon. And it's unfortunate that these poor people have been lied to and deceived. It's like someone's stealing something from somebody else and giving it to you, and you did not know it was stolen until you find out later the real owner comes and says, hey, you have my property.
So you're saying that this is somehow that law was misinterpreted and that
absolutely.
So you're saying the children that are born here, they to illegal immigrants should not be here.
They are what we call presumed citizens based on a custom that is not law, and it has to be rescinded at some point, because if not, we black people are going to be eliminated. We are already genocide in the minds of many people in this country. Whenever the issue of immigration, whether legal or illegal, comes up, you never hear them say, how does this affect black people? You're the first ones that's really brought us into the conversation, and I hope to be able to add more to this conversation as time goes on.
Now, I got to ask, Mr. Hayes, are you against immigration in general? Are you concerned about losing, like you said, jobs, losing housing, healthcare, education, political power, etc., to illegal immigrants? Are you against it in general?
I am against illegal immigration, which I do not consider illegal immigration. I consider it an invasion, an occupation of our country, particularly in the inner cities, which are called so-called sanctuary cities. That is coming after us. It's an invasion. When it comes to legal immigration, sure, come to the front door. Article 1, Section 8 is for the willing immigrants. The 14th Amendment is for the people who were once slaves in this country, and it can't go on like that. Oh, one more point about that. A lot of immigrants come to this country and they claim minority status, which therefore gives them civil rights access to something that does not belong to them. And we black folks, we chattel slave descendants, are being pushed further and further and further into the shadows of American society.
But Mr. Hayes, I think a lot of people...
So we need to straighten that up as well.
I would argue, though, Mr. Hayes, that a lot of people that say civil rights are human rights, don't you think a lot of people, whoever they are as people in the United States, deserve a certain level of dignity and rights?
Yes, they do deserve a level of dignity and right. They should not be tortured. They should not be harassed. But if I walk into your house, if I walk into Russia without proper authorities allowing me to do so, I will, and you punish me for that, I deserve what I get. If I break into your house and get caught, I deserve what I get. And it's unfortunate for these children that their parents are bringing them into this very volatile and dangerous situation.
Mr. Hayes, what about this, though? There are many people that are watching this that are going to say that a lot of immigrants themselves are the job creators. They create the jobs, not taking the jobs, especially there in Los Angeles. I gotta tell you, I'm a Los Angeles native myself, so I can tell you there's a lot of immigrants, both legal and illegal, who are the job creators. What do you say to those people?
I have no problem with that at all, but if they're here illegally, no, it's null and void. For example, if I rob the bank today, and then next week I start giving money out to people, to the poor, the homeless, building hospitals, does that absolve me of my crime? No, it does not, folks. It does not. And that is a problem. People, look, I can't go to Mexico or Guatemala or El Salvador or Russia or Persia or North Korea or China and do what these folks are doing here. And again, it's not their fault. It's the fault of my own federal government for not living up to the Constitution to protect us. We are a protected class, not because of our skin color, not because of our minority-majority status, but because of the cruel way in which immigrant people brought us into this country as slaves against our will to serve immigrants for almost 400 years. And look at the state of black people now in this country. Look at us. Is that right?
Mr. Hayes, unfortunately, I am out of time. We got to leave that right there. But I do hope to have you back on. We got a lot more to talk about on this subject. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Ted Hayes, civil rights activist in Los Angeles.
We need a new Declaration of Rights for Black Americans. You know I'm going to say that again. We need a new Declaration of Rights for Black Americans. This story was done in the truthout.org, like March the 16th, 2019, and this is how it reads. Once upon a time, there was the lowercase Negro, but in 1914, Marcus Garvey founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Community League and called his first convention in New York City in August of 1920 to mobilize its membership. The International Convention of Negroes of the World adopted the Declaration of Rights of the Negro People of the World, demanding that the word Negro be written with a capital N. But the Declaration didn't stop at semantics. Its 12 complaints and 54 declarations comprehend black philosophy of right. They spelled out the Black Magna Carta. The Declaration frames a new world order in terms of Africa for the Africans and at home and abroad. Declaration 41, for instance, describes the true conditions of Africans then and now. We believe that any limited liberties which deprives one of the complete rights and prerogatives of full citizenship is but a modified form of slavery. As we approach the Declaration Centennial in 2020, we must rediscover it as frame of reference for the live realities of black people in the United States. Privilege and immunities. The United States Constitution denotes 3 essential privileges and immunities, or, in the words of the Declaration 41, 3 rights and prerogatives of full citizenship: personal security, personal liberty, and private property. William Blackstone was the leading authority on common law in the British colonies in the lead-up to the American Revolution. The privileges and immunities of colonial charters of state constitution after 1776, of the Articles of Confederation, and of the United States Constitution were declaratory of Blackstone's definition of privilege and immunities, which were natural rights. So, his definition of privileges and immunities in his 1765 Commentaries of the Law of England remains authoritative. Here's how Blackstone defined liberty. Personal liberty constitutes or consists in the power of locomotion, of changing situations, and removing one person to whatsoever place one's own inclination may direct, without imprisonment or restraint, unless by due course of law. Conversely, we black Americans suffer limited liberty. The slave codes had kept black people in prison on plantations. Thus, the concept of privileges and immunities did not apply to black people until 1868. It did not apply to antebellum free blacks who were not really free because they were presumptive slaves under police state surveillances. Privilege and immunities had applied to black people their first 40 years in the colonies, from 1619, but not after the 1660s. The 1857 case, Dred Scott versus Sanford, expressed the black American condition once and for all. The Supreme Court held that the Negro has no rights which white men are bound to respect. The framers of the 14th Amendment tried to overturn Dred Scott, but the 1873 Slaughterhouse case nullified the natural rights content of the 14th Amendment privileges and immunities. The Supreme Court thus thwarted the Negro's national citizenship. Black people were left unprotected from white terrorism in the name of states' rights. For example, Tuskegee Institute had recorded 4,743 people lynched between 1882 and 1968, including 3,446 blacks and 1,297 whites. Some were white people who were lynched for helping Negroes. Furthermore, not all lynchings were actually recorded. Lynchings were facilitated by black codes that criminalized black people and denied their freedom of contract. Former Confederate states enacted these sweeping vagrancies and labor contract laws in the immediate aftermath of the 13th Amendment ratification. Today, black code mass incarcerate. The presumption of innocence underpins due process, but the Negro today is a presumptive criminal, much as the Negro yesterday was a presumptive slave. Among the relevant black codes are 2 recent Supreme Court cases: 1968 Terry versus Ohio and 1996 Wren versus the United States, towards a new declaration. A strict construction of the 4th Amendment mandates that police officers search or seize arrest a person only if they have probable cause to reasonably believe that the person committed a crime or is in the process of committing a crime. But Terry introduced the Orwell concept of reasonable suspicion, which gave police officers despotic discretions to search or seize on more suspicion. I describe this absurdity as Orwellian because police suspicion is often inherently unreasonable. Terry allows police officers to vent their bias against black people. Wren, meanwhile, allows police officers to pull over any automobile for any minor traffic offense. Police can then search records for outstanding arrest warrants. Taken together, Terry and Wren means limited liberty for black people on foot or in cars. Declaration 41 concepts of limited liberty exposes liberty and freedom as glittering generalities in the United States vocabulary, that is, as meaningless abstractions in light of the reality of the ground for black people in the United States. These last 350 years, white people do enjoy personal liberty within the context of the fourth privileges, Article 4, privileges and immunities. The United States does constitutionally guarantees them in Article 4, Republican form of government. But black people continue to suffer limited liberty. And so we endure the modified form of slavery described by Declaration 41. This reality check speaks to the larger purpose of the Declaration of Rights of the Negro peoples of the world, to frame political realities in terms of facts on the ground. From an Afrocentric standpoint, before we can solve the problem of limited liberties, we must first acknowledge it. We can only fight for freedom if we understand that our liberty is limited. Token achievements will not do. Declaration 41 is still cutting edge, given the fact that Terry and Wren criminalize walking while black and driving while black and pretty much doing anything while black. Black people in the United States simply do not enjoy personal liberty as defined by Blackstone, as an original intended by the Privileges and Immunity Clause of the Constitution. Consider that black people, especially black men, walk the street ever ready to be stopped because of the mainstream public stereotypes us as criminals, and thus we fit the description. We drive our cars knowing that at any moment we may be pulled over by a cop. This is the everyday hazard of driving while black. This is not freedom. This is Declaration 41's modified form of slavery. Terry and Wren makes the presumption of innocence into a joke, due process into a farce. The Supreme Court sanctioned lawless law enforcement. Declaration 41 should frame our efforts to overturn Terry and Wren and thus break these modern black codes. We should mandate strict constructions of due process and of reasonable search and seizure when reference to probable cause. While we're at it, let's insist on black with a capital B. Rise of the colonial plantation system. You know I'm going to say that again. Rise of the colonial plantation system. In 1606, King James I created the Virginia Company of London. Its goal was to establish colonies in the New World. As a joint stock company, it sold shares to raise money. Jamestown was the first successful colony. Surviving in a new environment was hard. Severe drought had stressed food supplies for everyone. The winter of 1609 through 1610 is known as the starving time. Food shortages, weak leadership, and attacks by the Powhatan killed 2 out of every 3 colonists. Those that survived struggled with diseases like dysentery and typhoid. It became hard to recruit settlers to go to the Virginia colony. Instead of offering shares, the Virginia Company of London offered land. Any adult male who could pay their own way to Virginia was promised 50 acres of land. They also encouraged new investors to assemble a group of settlers and start a plantation away from Jamestown. These settlements, called hundreds, were allowed more self-government. They were controlled by the Virginia. Company's chief manager in Jamestown, they were meant to support 100 heads of households. For example, Berkeley Plantation was established in 1619 as Berkeley 100 when Captain John Woodliff arrived with 38 colonists. Establishing a colony was not the only goal of the Virginia Company of London. It also wanted to make money. There was no flowing river of gold and jewels like the colonists believed. Instead, glass making, pitch and tar productions, and beer and wine making allowed them to use natural resources. But this was not enough. John Rolfe, Pocahontas' husband, had introduced tobacco for the Caribbeans in 1610. After Pocahontas died in England in 1617, he returned to Virginia and became a member of the council. He also sat as a member of the House of Burgesses, the first legislative assembly of elected representatives. By 1617, tobacco exports to England totaled 20,000 pounds. In 1619, the General Assembly began requiring tobacco inspections and mandating the creation of port towns and warehouses. These requirements helped major settlements like Norfolk, Alexandria, and Richmond to develop by the end of the century. By 1620, exports had risen to 50,000 pounds. 1624, the Virginia Company of London declared bankruptcy, and royal control was established. A governor and assembly appointed by the king would rule the colony until 1776. Life in the New World was hard for the immigrants. Colonists realized that they needed cheap labor to help work the land. Indentured servants solved that problem. The Virginia Company of London started this system where poor white workers could gain free passages to the New World in exchange for working. Their contracts lasted 4 to 7 years and were harsh and restrictive. Contracts could be extended if they tried to run away or if a woman became pregnant. Once their contracts expired, they were given a freedom package. This package could include 25 acres of land, clothes, and a year's worth of supplies. Very few indentured servants became elite members of colonial society. The first African Americans arrived in Virginia in 1619. They were known as the 20 and Odd. They were brought to Jamestown on board the English warship White Lion. The 20 African Americans were captives. They were removed from a Portuguese slave ship, the San Juan Batista. The Portuguese ship was on its way to deliver the Africans to Mexico. At that time in Jamestown, there were no slave laws, and African captives were treated like indentured servants and given the same opportunities for freedom as white. By the mid-1600s, the tobacco economy had grown tremendously. As demand grew, so did the cost of indentured servants. Slavery quickly replaced indentured servitude as the preferred source of human labor. Landowners were threatened by the prospects of newly freed servants demanding land. Enslaved Africans were viewed as a more profitable and renewable source of labor. In 1661, Virginia formally recognized slavery. By law, white indentured servants were forbidden from running away with a black servant. In 1662, Virginia passed a law that stated children would be free or bonded based on the status of the mother. This meant that a child born to an enslaved woman would also be enslaved, making slavery hereditary. By 1705, the Virginia General Assembly declared that all those not born into Christianity in their native land would be enslaved for life. Treatment of enslaved Africans varied by time and place. In most cases, it was brutal and abuse was common. Enslaved Africans were not allowed to learn how to read and write. At any moment, mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters could be sold. They were considered to be property, to be bought, sold, and bred like cattle. Working conditions were harsh. Many enslaved Africans worked from sunup to sundown. Access to adequate food, clothing, and medical attention was limited. However, not all African African Americans were born into slavery or stayed slaves their entire lives. Lot Carey was a former slave who became a Baptist minister and lay physician. He purchased his freedom and the freedom of his children when he was 33. Other slaves with tenant masters had the opportunity to earn money and purchase their freedom too. By the Civil War, there were over 58,000 free blacks in Virginia and almost 500,000 slaves. Many free blacks lived in cities like Petersburg and Richmond. The Pocahontas Island Historic District had 310 free African Americans living in the community by 1800s. Plantation and cash crops. You know I'm going to say that again. Plantations and cash crops. Tobacco was Virginia's first cash crop. A cash crop is any crop raised for its profits rather than for its use. It was a labor-intense crop requiring cheap labor and cheap land. Startup costs were expensive. Early settlers used the Native American method to clear the land. They geared trees, burned the underbush, and then planted their crops. The first to finish producing tobacco took a full year to grow and harvest. Planters could only grow tobacco in particular fields for 3 years. After that, the field had to lie dormant to allow the nutrients to return to the soil. This required more and more land. Thus, after time, a plantation came to describe large areas of land that were devoted to agriculture rather than a new settlement or colony. By the end of the 1600s, the Virginia Tobacco Company or economy was thriving. Tobacco profits helped to buy indentured servants and slaves. They also were used to pay local taxes and buy manufactured goods from England. With relatively cheap labor, increasing demands, and a system of regulation, the colonial plantation system was born. Shirley Plantation is a premier example of a Virginia tobacco plantation. Once tobacco became popular and profitable, everyone wanted to plant it. Colonial authorities had to require farmers to grow food crops, particularly corn. Farmers also grew peas, barley, turnip, cabbage, pumpkins, carrots, and herbs. This did not stop the overproduction of tobacco. Overproduction caused tobacco prices to drop. To stabilize prices, colonial authorities restrict the number of plants farmers could grow. Farmers were only allowed to plant 1,500 tobacco crops. Low tobacco prices caused a group of farmers to cut down tobacco seedlings in 1682. This caused a temporary demand for tobacco and price began to rise again. Overproduction caused tobacco price to drop again to a penny per pound. By 1709, the Virginia colony was producing 29 million pounds of tobacco per year. Tobacco prices remained low until the 1730s and stable through the 1740s and 1750s. By the start of the American Revolution in 1775, the Virginia General Assembly voted to stop tobacco exports to Europe. Farmers switched to wheat production to help the troops. Historians estimated that the total tobacco production between 1776 and 1782 equaled 1 year's output before the war began.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
I'm here to tell you tonight that the businessmen, the mayor of this city, the police commissioner of this city, and everybody in the white power structure of this city must take a responsibility for everything.
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Luther and I, and everyone in this arena tonight, are unified by the same great American values. We're proud of our country. We respect our flag. Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Race is when you use your power and influence to subject people into inferiority. Utterances can't be racist.
Look around you, man. They own this shit. They own this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We're behind enemy lines, dog.
So you must first of all remember that this system was not originally designed with black people in mind. Right on, right on. And it definitely was not prepared for black people to, in the end, begin to demand their rights and an equal share in this country which they died for. Right on. Hey, and we definitely are not going back to Africa.
In the church, we used to sing the song, "Good news, the chariot is coming." While you sit here today, knowing that you have come to hear good news, you must realize in advance what good news for you might be bad news for somebody else. What good news for the sheep might be bad news to the wolf.
They say, oh, things are getting so much better for you. In 1849, it was hitting blacks on the head 100 times a day. In 1990, they hit them 48 times a day. Isn't it better? Oh, it's got to be better. You're saved 52 blows.
The only purpose of most black Americans on earth today is to destroy.
I think that's noble. Italians love Italians. When Irish love Irish. But when a nigga loves a nigga, it's an unpardonable sin. They have blood in their hands. When we say they have blood in their hands, we are not saying him, George Bezos, went and killed. But white people colonized us. They dispersed us. They enslaved our people. They sucked our economy dry. They are still sucking it dry even today. That's white people. Tony Blair, George Bush, Napoleon Bonaparte, Leopold, Adolf Hitler, Benjamin Netanyahu. All white people, they are the same. They are racist and they are full of hate.
I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here? Our world is coming crumbling down. The coons are coming.
You got to understand that white America has an uncanny way of making the victim the victimizer. Excuse me, master, for putting my head in the way of your club. Not that your club is brutalizing my head and putting hickeys on it. My head got in the way of your free swing and broke your shiny stick, and I want to apologize for that.
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
There are more connections in the human body than there are stars in the galaxy. We possess a gigantic network of information to which we have almost no access.
Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the 6th version.
5 ones before me. 3. There are only 2 possible explanations. There were 5 ones before me. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
Control me! I'm gonna smash you to bits. You can't make me do anything like prick.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Let us remember that we are not brutalized because we're Baptist. We're not brutalized because we're Methodist. We're not brutalized because we're Muslim. We're not brutalized because we're Catholics. We're brutalized because we are black people in America.
Because white people made him to be what he is. They made him to look evil, because that's their role, to make all of us black people to look evil and to hate ourselves. I can't hate you.
You're a nigga till you die. If you're a poor nigga, you're a poor nigga. If you're a rich nigga, you're a rich nigga. But you never stop being a nigga. And if you get to be educated, you're just an educated nigga.
I'm told every day I'm on air that I'm racist because I call out racism. That is maddening to me, and I'm crying about it because it's crazy.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching you and I and trying to tell the white man to get this powder keg out of his house. Let the black man separate from his house. Let the black man have his own house. Let the black man have his own land and his own property.
I thought the bitch was white! Damn it! I thought the bitch was white!
That's true. I think that white people are so guilty, knowing what they've done to black people, that they feel if the deeds were reversed, they would hate the black man if he had done the same thing to them. So it's actually, it reflects a guilt complex on the part of whites when they ask us, do we hate them? And if you notice, Uncle Sam has formed a habit of going all over the world. He calls it the ugly American, or the American image. He thinks that everybody hates him because it's a guilt complex. And if you think that if you are worried about Europeans hating you, and they're your allies and your cousins, well, naturally it would follow for you to think that Negroes in this country would hate you, especially in light of what has been done to black people in this country by white people.
Now, check it out. The white ball dominates everything, right? Knocks the shit out the yellow ball, the red ball, right? And the game's over when the white ball drives the black ball completely off the table.
But you have to see that all of this is hypocrisy.
I love Malcolm. Malcolm called me the Sunday that he died. I was working Basin Street East. He said, "Brother Greg, you coming by today?" And I said, "Malcolm, I love you." And I said, "I love you so much, I don't even want to take a chance to be there." He said, "What do you mean, Brother Greg?" I said, "Well, I close tonight, Sunday night at Basin Street East." And I said, "But I had my wife book me a flight into Chicago at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm going to Chicago, and I had way beneath my salary booked me into a college about 10 miles from the airport. And I'm going to go there and speak this afternoon, and I'm going to stay there until they tell me you dead. Because I'm not going to let this government get two of us for the price of one. And I'm going to call Adam Clayton Powell when I finish talking to you and beg him not to come there. Because today, the United States government is going to get you."